subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Synopsis. Traveling to the Marvel world, Awakening compiles the diary system. As long as the holder of the diary believes it, then he can obtain the strongest ability. Tony Stark. The moon is soaring to the sky? That's what I did? No, damn it. I absolutely don't believe it. Why are you still a little bit excited? Loki. Walter. So, I married myself? Thor. So, I have a daughter in the future, not my own? Steve. Anyway, Sue is a real superhero, I believe. Damn, you give me back the shield. Wanda. Hey, this is my husband. Chapter 1. I keep a diary for myself? That is to say, I want to make up a diary for myself and create my own identity. The more real it is, the easier it is for people to believe, and the stronger the ability I get. Manhattan, inside an apartment building. Seeing himself passing through the awakening system, Su Che pondered. Yes, Su Che is a time traveler who has inexplicably time traveled to this dangerous Marvel world. Fortunately, Awakening has a biography system. As long as you fabricate an identity that is easy to believe according to the requirements of the system and the set identity, then you can get a powerful ability from it. Yes, host. Facing Su Che's inquiry, the system gave a mechanical, affirmative answer. Clearly, the system isn't very smart. Just looking at the prompt given by the system, Su Che pondered slightly. I know the future development of this movie universe, so according to the direction of the timeline, there is no difficulty in coming up with an identity for yourself in a self-created diary. According to the system requirements, I need to create my own personality according to the identity limit it gives and around this limit. There are not many restrictions given by the system. It starts with superhero. The second point is grow gradually. Point 3. Identity is about making the diary holder and making it believe. These 3 points are clear. First, I have to create my own personality as a superhero. The second point is that you can't directly write that you are invincible in the diary. This is symmetrical to the third point. That is to say, the more the diary holders believe in the diaries and personalities they made up, then you can gain more and more powerful strength. Instead of writing in the diary that I am invincible in this universe, then I am really invincible in this universe. However, the second and third limiting requirements correspond to each other. But the third point is also the hardest. It means that I want to write in the diary, and I have a relationship with the holder of the diary. This allows them to trust what they have written. Well, this is the hardest bit. System. Who are the holders of the initial diary? After pondering for a moment, Su Che asked the system. First-time diary holders. Wanda Django Maximoff, Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury. Looking at the initial 3 diary holders given by the system, Su Che nodded lightly. That means that the initial owner of the diary is Scarlet Witch, Widow's sister, and Madame Francia, right? Scarlet Witch is easy to say. According to the timeline, she is still a 14-year-old girl in Sokovia. Although the Widow is already a famous Black Widow, it's not a big problem. The biggest problem is Nick Fury, who's never been skeptical about anything. It should be said that Nick Fury is the most difficult one for the initial diary holder to gain trust. Looking at the transparent compilation screen on the system panel in front of him, Su Che leaned on his chin and said, "You can't easily fabricate a persona and identity. You have to do it carefully. The most important thing is to have a relationship with these 3. Then how can I be a superhero and have a relationship with them?" After thinking for a few seconds, Su Che's eyes lit up. Have. The kind that can think of itself as a behind-the-scenes stream. Doesn't it just revolve around being a superhero? Does it have something to do with them? How simple is quantum mechanics? Looking at the system editing light curtain in front of him, Su Che began to edit. At the same time, SHIELD, or should I say Strategic Homeland Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency, inside Nick Fury's office. Nick Fury, who just finished a discussion with Alexander Pierce, former director and current Secretary General of SHIELD. As soon as he returned to his office, he saw a black gold, extremely mysterious diary on his desk. Seeing the sudden addition of things on the desk, the only remaining eye of Nick Fury froze. Then he looked at Maria Hill, who was sitting not far from his desk, and asked, "Hill, Has anyone been to my office? Nobody. Facing Nick Fury's inquiry, Maria Hill, who was processing the documents, immediately replied, "It has been 12 minutes and 45 seconds since you went to find Mr. Pierce. I've been in the office during this period, and I can confirm that no one has entered your office." Hearing Hill's answer, Nick Fury came to the desk, pointed to the black gold diary on his desk, and said, "How did that thing come about?" "What?" Looking in the direction of Nick Fury's finger, Maria Hill saw nothing but a clean desk and some neatly arranged files. "And didn't see anything, I mean this." Pointing to the diary, Nick Fury asked Hill, "You can't see?" "Boss, I don't understand what you're talking about." After making sure that she was not dazzled, Maria Hill's expression became serious. He got up and patted the ordinary watch on his wrist. The next moment, the holographic camera appeared, and the picture appeared in front of Nick Fury in real time. "Director, as you can see, I can't see anything in the place you're pointing at. Even the whole series of cameras didn't show what you said." Seeing the entire series of images appear in front of him, Nick Fury frowned. In the holographic projection screen, there was nothing at the place he was pointing at. But when he turned his head, he could see where the black gold diary was kept intact. "Nick need me." Seeing Nick Fury frown, Maria Hill was about to speak when she saw Nick Fury wave his hand. "Stretch out your hand, and the scanner on your wrist scans lightly." Looking at the state-of-the-art scanner did not suggest that the diary was in any danger or after radiation. Nick Fury's expression gradually became serious. At the same time, Sokovia, "I really can't see, and there's nothing." Looking at Wanda, who insisted on calling her sister, she was actually her own sister. Pietro reached out and patted Wanda's palm. "Look, if there is that black gold notebook you mentioned, then my hand should be slapped on the notebook, not directly in your palm. Did you not wake up last night? Or did you have a fever?" As he spoke, Pietro raised his hand in concern and measured Wanda's forehead. "Okay, forget it if you can't see it." Slapping Pietro's hand away angrily, Wanda pointed to the door. "Go and help me get my lunch back. This is what you, a younger brother, should do for your older sister." Listening to Wanda's words, Pietro looked at her helplessly. "I always feel that Wanda is a little weird today." Chapter 2 Diary. We lost, the Earth was destroyed. Parallel world. Looking at the content written in the black gold diary, Nick Fury frowned slightly. "I once heard Dr. OSS put forward the theory of parallel worlds, but I didn't expect to see it in this diary now." Although he has always maintained a vigilant and skeptical attitude towards the contents written in this black gold diary. But Nick Fury decided to keep watching. "My name is Su Che, and this is the second month since I traveled to this parallel world. I really like sitting on the bench and basking in the sun, because I can't remember how long it has been since the last time I could bask in the sun so leisurely. Yes, the world I'm in is destroyed, completely destroyed. At first, we thought we had won the battle. We defeated Kong the Conqueror. We defeated the Time Administration. We Avengers guard the world once again." Seeing this, especially seeing the name Avengers, Nick Fury's pupils shrank instantly. Avengers has always been an idea he didn't implement. In his conception, it is to form a team with some super ability users. Use their power to guard the safety of this world. This is after the battle with the Kree is over, and after Captain Marvel Carol leaves Earth. Ideas that I conceive myself, but now, this concept of mine has not yet begun to unfold. He actually saw this name in this diary that appeared out of thin air, and only he could see it. This can't help but make Nick Fury serious. After that battle, Hawkeye Barton told me with a smile that he had found his successor and could become the second-generation Hawkeye of the Avengers. Thor also jokingly said that his adopted daughter can also join the Avengers and become the second-generation Avenger. Loki spreads his hands and says he's going to have some kids with Hill, hopefully not as naughty as he used to be. Dr. Banner is discussing with his cousin, the female Green Titan, and Ant-Man. The son he brought back from Sakaar is getting more and more disobedient. Everything was so easy. Everything was so peaceful. At the end of the day, they told me and my wife Wanda that we should have 2 more babies too. We could also name the baby Pietro. In this way, the members of the second-generation Avengers can stabilize the world, and our group of Avengers can retire. Sokovia. Look at the sentence, me and my wife Wanda in the diary. Wanda, who was sitting on the sofa holding a diary and looking at it, felt a little overwhelmed for a moment. Why does this diary show my name? Is it the same name? But can the baby's name be Pietro? This is definitely not the same name. After all, Wanda and Pietro, aren't they just me and my brother? Most importantly, she is the wife of the owner of this diary. That man named Suche is my future husband? What? I don't even know the owner of this diary. That guy named Suche. How could she become his wife? And want to have a baby with him? Although I have always hoped to have a warm home and have two cute and well-behaved babies with my future husband. But I'm only 14 years old now. With a trace of curiosity, Wanda continued to read. At that time, the atmosphere was relaxed, and all superheroes were enjoying the relaxed atmosphere that the war had just ended. But in the next second, everything changed. Before we realized it, countless Conqueror Kong appeared in various timelines. And together with countless conquerors, there were also countless monsters and god groups. Those monsters and the god group are so powerful. They are so powerful that they are desperate. At that moment, the sky fell apart. Countless mountains and rivers began to collapse, and countless rivers and seas boiled and evaporated. As far as the eye can see, there are ruins everywhere, and as far as the eye can see, there are corpses everywhere. It seems that the whole world is full of desperate wailing. We failed, even though we Avengers have saved the world countless times. But this time, we really failed. Hawkeye Barton is dead, Thor is dead, Dr. Banner is dead, and the Green Titan is dead. All dead. I don't know if they were unwilling or desperate before they died in battle. All I know is that at the moment when the Earth exploded into a tiny speck of dust in the universe, I saw Natasha Romanoff, Steve, Tony. That was the earliest group of people in our first generation Avengers. And it was also the first group of people in our Avengers to die in battle or retire. I only know that when my consciousness dissipated in despair, we have protected the Earth countless times, but in the end we were not spared. We lose. The first diary was written here and ended abruptly. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D. At this moment, in Nick Fury's mind, with the end of the diary, it seems that scenes of despair are also filled in his mind. This is the power of words. No exaggeration, no long descriptions. But it was the simple to desolate sense of despair that deeply enveloped Nick Fury, as well as Natasha Romanoff and Wanda, who were reading the diary. They even seemed to have witnessed the desperate doomsday scene described in the diary. Chapter 3, Widow Sister said, "I'm dead." After reading the first diary, Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief. Unexpectedly, the scene described in the first article of this diary is so shocking. In the diary, Kong the Conqueror failed, but Kong the Conqueror on various timelines joined forces with many monsters and the Celestial God Group to destroy the Earth together. But who is Kong the Conqueror? Some villain who wants to destroy the planet? What is the Tenjin Group? The so-called gods in Norse mythology? What is the Time Administration? The same organization as the National Strategy. S.H.I.E.L.D. that I control now? Nick Fury is pretty sure he's never heard of the Time Administration. Imagining this, Nick Fury turned on the computer and then entered a few names on the computer. Suche, Barton, Dr. Banner, the Green Titan, Thor, Loki, Hilvi, Ant-Man, Wanda, Pietro, Tony, Steve, Natasha Romanoff. After thinking about it, Nick Fury distinguished the three names Tony, Steve, and Natasha Romanoff from other names. After all, according to the Black Gold Diary, Tony, Steve, and Natasha Romanoff were the first to sacrifice or retire. After a few seconds of hesitation, Pietro's name was classified into the column of Tony, but an indeterminate symbol was marked behind Pietro's name. It is clearly stated in the diary that other people hope that the owner of the diary and Wanda will have a child named Pietro. Definitely, that doesn't mean Pietro is dead. After all, many times, there are always people who name their children uncle, or other people in the family. After dividing the names, Nick Fury began to think about these people. According to the diary above, these people are all conceived by themselves, members of the Avengers. Suche can be sure that the owner of this diary came from a parallel world. Barton and Natasha Romanoff, and Dr. Banner should be able to ascertain as well. And what about this guy named Tony? Who is he? Is it the same name or that famous playboy, the son of Mr. Howard Stark? Probably not him. After all, no matter what this guy Tony Stark thinks, they're all standard arrogant, narcissistic playboys. Nick Fury has a hard time linking him to the so-called superhero. Thor, Loki, Hill, and others don't know it either. But Ant-Man. It reminds Nick Fury of Dr. Pym. He seems to be able to use Pym particles to change the file size. In the top secret files of SHIELD, Ant-Man is marked. Will it be Dr. Pym? Probably not. There is a detail in the diary. Dr. Banner is talking with Ant-Man and the female Green Titan about the education of his son brought back from Sakaar. It should be stated then that Ant-Man also has a child. And Dr. Pym's daughter is almost 30 years old now. And according to Dr. Pym's character, no matter how you think about it, you won't discuss this matter with Dr. Banner. While Nick Fury was thinking, there was a knock on the office door. Signaling people to come in, Nick Fury saw Natasha Romanoff walking in. Seeing Natasha Romanoff walk in, Nick Fury didn't put away the diary but asked calmly, "Natasha Romanoff, what do you want?" Anyway, according to my own test, other people cannot see this black gold diary. There was something wrong at first, but Mr. Director, it's all right now. Looking at the black gold diary on Nick Fury's desk, Natasha Romanoff shook her head. Then he took out the same diary with a black gold cover from behind him. You also have, looking at the black gold diary in Natasha Romanoff's hand, Nick Fury raised his eyebrows slightly. Apart from you, who else in SHIELD owns this diary? SHIELD. Natasha Romanoff nodded after reacting. That's right, the name SHIELD is indeed much simpler and more convenient than our current name. After complaining, Natasha Romanoff sat across Nick Fury's desk and shook her head. I don't know much about this. However, except for me, no one else seems to be able to see or touch this black gold diary. I just tried Hawkeye and found that Hawkeye can't see this diary in my hand. That is to say, other than the holder of the diary, no one else can see it. Nick Fury nodded when he heard what Natasha Romanoff said. Not only that, Director, in fact, the holder of the diary cannot disclose the contents of the diary to others. Natasha Romanoff continued to add to Nick Fury. I just tried it out and wanted to tell Hawkeye the unimportant content written in the diary. But before the words were spoken, I suddenly felt a palpitation. It seemed that as long as I said it, I would die. The last time I had such a terrifying feeling was when I was training in the Red House. Having said that, Natasha Romanoff looked at Nick Fury and asked seriously, "Director, what do you think of what is written in the diary? Please ask for flowers and evaluation tickets. The data during the new book period is extremely important. As long as the flowers exceed 1,000, the evaluation votes exceed 100, or the monthly tickets exceed 10, then the first day will be 10 more. Chapter 4, How Cool It Is for Homelander to Have a Soaring Moon. What do you think?" Facing Nick Fury's question, the widow tapped on Erlang's leg and fell silent for a moment. I hope it's fake, although the diary is full of oddities. But if it's true, then I'm not sure if the future of the parallel universe in this diary will be the future of our world. So you believe it? Listening to Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury asked, "Have no idea." Facing Nick Fury's words, Natasha Romanoff pretended to be relaxed and smiled. I don't know whether I should believe it or not. After all, the first entry in this diary is simply hopeless. But if that Hawkeye Barton in the diary is the Hawkeye we know, then that Natasha Romanoff must be me. So, if what is written in the diary is true, then I will be the first among the so-called Avengers to retire or die in battle. Having said that, Natasha Romanoff looked at Nick Fury and said with a smile, "So, Mr. Director, do you want me to be the first to die in battle, or the first to retire?" Facing Natasha Romanoff's smile, Nick Fury was silent for a moment. Avengers has actually always been a concept of mine. A super ability team that wants to gather super ability users to save the world and face the crisis. Looking at Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury said very seriously, "I haven't implemented this idea yet, or in other words, no one knows the name Avengers except me." Director, that means you believe the contents of this diary? It does not matter. Looking at Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury said seriously, "Natasha Romanoff, from now on you give up all the next tasks. There is only one goal, to find out the owner of this diary. This is very important to us. If what the owner of this diary wrote is true, then the owner of the diary, Su Che, who knows what will happen in the future in advance, will be very important to us. Facing Nick Fury's extremely serious look, Natasha Romanoff spread her hands. I definitely know this, but there are 7 billion people in this world. There are 1.4 billion people in China who have removed black and white skin. Director, we only know his name is Su Che, and he is a super ability man. The specific ability is unknown, the identity is unknown, the appearance is unknown, and the location is unknown. To use a Chinese idiom, this is looking for a needle in the vast sea. The most important thing is if he is in China, the territory of the Shakespeare Bureau, according to the comparison of the strength of the Shakespeare and our country, our shield. It is estimated that our aegis has been broken, and the God Spear will not hurt the bones. In the comics, SHIELD and Divine Spear are really not the same size. Whether it is the number of super ability fighters or similar aerospace aircraft carrier battleships, or the number of members. Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Nick Fury also leaned on the seat and squeezed his eyebrows. It's really difficult. Take your time. Since the first diary is out, I think the second diary may not be too far away. At least when the next few diaries appear, maybe we can find the figure of the owner of this diary, Su Che. Manhattan, inside an apartment building. In other words, Nick Fury is the most trusted of the three. Seeing that Nick Fury's trust in the diary is as high as 57%, while Wanda is only 40% and Natasha Romanoff is only 35%. Su Che was slightly surprised. After all, in his mind, Wanda, who is only 14 years old now, should be the best to deceive. She is still young now, and she is only thinking of avenging her parents. And Nick Fury, who is skeptical of everything, is the hardest thing to convince him. Unexpectedly, the guy who was the most difficult to deceive trust is now the one with the highest trust. TSK. Looking at the first diary I compiled, Su Che suddenly reacted. Yes, Nick Fury hasn't proposed to build the Avengers team yet. In other words, the concept of Avengers exists only in Nick Fury. Probably this is why Nick Fury has the highest level of trust among the three. Get up and go to the window, watching the people coming and going outside. Depend on, this is the most dangerous place in the Marvel world. New York, where both aliens and villains like to make trouble. If it is not to follow the system requirements. If it wasn't for the next contact with Avengers members. Let them believe that they are people from the parallel universe. So as to get a stronger ability, then I have already thought of a way to leave here and return to the territory guarded by the Domestic Spear Bureau, TSK, and the system has to be set with a superhero from a parallel world. Otherwise, how cool it would be to be a homelander by yourself, and to the moon soaring to the sky, without any scruples. Thinking of this, Su Che laughed. Then open the system and start receiving the rewards from the first diary. Chapter 5. So, go ahead and make them feel hopeless. Water control ability. Looking at the ability given by the system, Su Che raised his eyebrows slightly. This is the rhythm of making yourself Aquaman. Alright, perhaps it's because of the three. Only Nick Fury has the highest level of trust. So the ability rewarded by the system is not the most advanced. But anyway, it's a good start, isn't it? Raising his hand slightly. The next moment the water in the glass in front of him began to flow upwards, directly following Su Che's thoughts. Then it slowly gathered in Su Che's palm. It can even be transformed into any shape with Su Che's idea. Just like now, Su Che only thinks about the shape of the arrow. The next moment, the water droplet in the palm instantly turned into an arrow. With a light wave of his hand, the water arrow flew out in an instant, directly piercing through the photo frame on the wall. Seeing the power of the water arrow, Su Che nodded in satisfaction. Moreover, who said that water control can only become like this? You must know that the water content of an adult's body accounts for 70%. So, As soon as this idea came out, Su Che shook his head instantly. Why is it a little bit evil? Hiding this thought from his mind, Su Che then opened the diary compilation page. Well, anyway, I'm not Homelander now, but I want to create a superhero for myself. It can't be so evil yet, right? Opening the diary editing page, Suche thought for a while. How can the three diary holders increase their trust more? After thinking about it, maybe I should make my personality more full, and I have to get in touch with them. Otherwise, how can I gain more trust? Definitely. We have to be prepared for SHILD to tie himself up as a prophet. After all, prophets are dangerous. Suche doesn't want to be kidnapped by someone sent by Nick Fury just because of revealing his identity, then locked in the secret hut, interrogated about the future every day. For anything, the only way to make yourself invincible is to keep the worst idea, right? After thinking for a while, Suche's eyes lit up. Have inside SHILD. Director, the diary has been updated. Natasha Romanoff, who was flipping through the diary and repeatedly reading the contents of the first diary. Suddenly, I saw a text appearing on the second page of the diary, which was originally blank. He immediately said to Nick Fury. Hearing Natasha Romanoff's words, Nick Fury also immediately flipped through the diary, ready to see what was written in the second entry of the diary. It has been more than half a month since I came to this parallel world. I thought I could gradually forget the world I was in. But looking at the scene in front of me, bits and pieces of my world always pop up in my mind. I really want to take another look at the world that belongs to me. If the two worlds are only separated by distance and time, then even if there are hundreds of millions of light years apart, I will try my best to return to the world that belongs to me. However, that world of mine has been destroyed, and it has been completely turned into an insignificant speck of dust in the universe. Can't go back. What a despair. Perhaps I should continue to protect this parallel world, continue to be a superhero among Avengers, and use my ability to protect this parallel world from the doom of destruction. However, I'm a little tired. In my world, I have been an Avenger for more than 10 years, and I can't count how many times I have saved the world from the crisis of destruction. I just want to be a common now. Be an office worker who only cares about life. Perhaps this is why God let me come to this parallel world, and it is the best reward for my more than 10 years of Avenger career. But I can't do it. Dream back to midnight. In every dream, I can see the despair of my comrades and Avengers members before they die. I dreamed of them more than once, dreaming that they told me to continue to protect the world. I was even in my dream, subconsciously looking for a way to save this world. Every time is very tiring. Every time I have to face despair, but in my dream, I never stop. Maybe I should go to Nick Fury now and talk to him about the dangers the world faces in the future. But I don't want to do that. On the one hand, Tony in this alternate universe timeline hasn't been kidnapped yet. He hasn't become Iron Man yet. Everything has not yet officially opened. On the other hand, SHILD is not safe. At least, there are only a few people in SHILD that I can trust. Nick Fury, Maria Hill, Phil Coulson, Natasha Romanoff, Lynn Tay. I may be able to contact them now, but I cannot contact other people in SHILD, let alone let other people in SHILD know that I came from a parallel world. Because SHILD is not really SHILD yet. Even Nick Fury is blinded by that group of people at the moment. Well, that's pretty good, at least before Tony is kidnapped and becomes Iron Man, which symbolizes the official start of everything. Maybe I can live a flat but simple life. Just let me, my heart full of cracks, take a brief moment of self-cultivation. Chapter 6, Wanda. Oh, why does he write everything in his diary? Looking at the contents of the diary, Nick Fury frowned. What is called SHILD is not really SHIELD. What does it mean to be blinded by those people? Moreover, SHILD is not safe. How many people can he trust now? Looking at the content written in the diary at this moment, Nick Fury inexplicably felt an extremely bad, even absurd premonition. Director. Listening, Natasha Romanoff looked up at himself, seeing that she was about to say something. Nick Fury waved his hand suddenly. Under Natasha Romanoff's gaze, Nick Fury reached out and pressed a hidden button under the table. In an instant, a signal shielding wave invisible to the naked eye enveloped Nick Fury's office. I don't know what the content written in this diary means, but looking at what he wrote, it's obvious what happened to SHILD in his parallel world. Although there is already a guess in my heart that even Nick Fury finds it ridiculous. But he didn't say it directly. Continue to read this diary. And after reading this diary, we will ask questions or draw conclusions. Listen to Nick Fury. Although Natasha Romanoff has strong doubts in her heart at the moment, but he still nodded and continued to read the diary. In the diary, if the previous content was written on purpose to Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff, it is to make them believe that when they come into contact with them, some embarrassing things will not happen. Then the next content in the diary. It is related to Wanda, compiled by Sue Che. Rain and Dew. After all, there are 3 diary holders. Sue Che definitely couldn't leave Wanda behind. Sue Che is very good at writing short essays. Unfortunately, one of the system rewards for the first diary is to turn the ice cream shop opposite Stark Industry into your own coffee shop, instead of making Stark Industries your own, even if it is to make Hammer Industries its own. Save money. Opposite to Stark Industry, it was originally an ice cream shop, but now it has become a coffee shop. Yes, this cafe is mine now. I like to sit on the edge of the window in the coffee shop and look out because it makes me feel rare peace and tranquility. I named this cafe Peach Blossom Forest because when I first met Wanda, it was in a peach blossom forest. At that time, Ultron was just born and was still preparing to destroy the world. At that time, Wanda and Pietro chose to help Ultron because of their parents' hatred and Ultron's deception. Later, the Avengers defeated Ultron, and Wanda also became a member of the Avengers. Afterwards, we were together. Sokovia. Seeing that she was mentioned again in the diary, Wanda's eyes lit up instantly. She is curious to know what will happen to her future. I also really want to know if I will avenge my parents in the future. Although the owner of the diary is a bad guy, he always says that he is his husband. What, I don't believe it myself. However, looking at the peach blossom forest mentioned in the diary, Wanda was still slightly surprised. He actually knows that his favorite is the beautiful peach blossom forests. Could it be that the owner of this diary is really her future husband? How else would he know what he likes best? With a hint of curiosity, Wanda continued to look at it. The reason why I opened a coffee shop is because this is the original idea of me and Wanda. When we were together, I said I wanted to open a coffee shop, and she said she wanted to open a flower shop next to the coffee shop. I also said that the coffee shop and the flower shop are for our future daughter. As for our son, we will send him to be a doctor or a lawyer. When the two of us are together, we always like to cuddle up to each other and discuss the future careers of our son and daughter. Always constantly looking forward to the future. However, who would have thought that the future we were looking forward to would eventually turn into a piece of dust? Who is cuddling with you? And also a son and daughter. Why does he write everything in his diary? Looking at the contents of the diary, Wanda blushed slightly. I also began to wonder what the owner of this diary looks like. After all, this person named Sue Che is very likely to be her future husband. 14 years old is the age when one can imagine wildly and yearn for love. So looking at the content written in the diary, Wanda inexplicably had a trace of anticipation. The first thought I came to this world was to go to Sokovia to find Wanda. But is the Wanda of this world my Wanda? Also, I can't do that either. Not to mention that she is only 14 years old at the moment. Most importantly, although she and Pietro were born with the ability, they didn't know it. Even if the mind gem as a medium stimulates their ability, then they may be common people in this life. I can't. At least I shouldn't decide their fate. But I really saw her, even if I just hid from a distance and took a look. Perhaps Wanda is my deepest obsession and the last trace of attachment in this world. But I know that the Wanda in this world doesn't belong to me. At least she doesn't belong to me right now. Chapter 7, Natasha Romanoff. I'm very interested in him now. Looking at what was written in the diary, Wanda's eyes lit up. Will I and Pietro have super abilities in the future? Doesn't that mean that he and Pietro have the opportunity to find that damn Tony Stark and avenge their parents? However, as stated in the diary, the ability of myself and Pietro needs that mind gem to stimulate this ability. What are mind gems? It shouldn't be those rubies and sapphires. I really want to ask Baron Strucker. He should know what mind gem is. It's just that the contents of the diary can't be disclosed to non-diary holders. After all, when I first got the diary, I wanted to tell Pietro the contents of the diary. The result was heart palpitations. That feeling is really horrible. However, What kind of super ability will I and Pietro have in the future? It's really exciting. Really, this stinky guy named Suche shouldn't have written in his diary. The key things that should be written are not written at all. Really, if I meet him in the future and really become his girlfriend, then I must ignore him for 3 days. SHIELD, inside Nick Fury's office. Director, it seems that I don't need to bother to investigate the owner of this diary, named Suche. He has clearly written his location in the diary, and the coffee shop he opened is across from Stark Industries in Manhattan. Having said that, Natasha Romanoff looked at Nick Fury and asked, "So, Director, do I need to meet with him, or should I bring someone to tie him here?" "No." Listening to Natasha Romanoff's proposal, Nick Fury thought about it for a few seconds, then waved his hand. Obviously, the owner of the diary, Suche, doesn't trust S.H.I.E.L.D. In other words, I don't trust the current S.H.I.E.L.D. Although I still don't understand why this Suche trusts us, but to S.H.I.E.L.D. However, I will slowly figure out what's inside. Before that, don't bring him to SHIELD for now. Having said that, Nick Fury looked at Natasha Romanoff. Through the content written in this diary, what kind of person or state do you think Suche is now? Superhero. A superhero who has saved the Earth countless times. Facing Nick Fury's questioning, Natasha Romanoff replied bluntly, "If what is written in the diary is true, then there is no doubt that this Suche is a respectable superhero. Analyzing a person based on the intelligence they have is one of the basic skills a professional agent should have. As for the mental state, it is not difficult to analyze the fragments revealed between the lines. This Mr. Suche is very tired. Definitely, I mean the psychological aspect. Director, let's assume that this diary is real. So according to what is written in the diary, it has been more than half a month since he came to our parallel universe. But he often dreams about the destruction of the parallel universe he was in. This shows that he is full of stress and anxiety. I even feel deep self-blame for failing to save the world he lives in. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking for a way to save the world, even in your subconscious dream." Speaking of this, Natasha Romanoff looked at Nick Fury and smiled. Definitely, it is also written in the diary that he is an Avenger for more than 10 years. An old superhero. He has saved the Earth countless times. This can also show from the side that his mind should be very firm. You must know that ordinary people cannot continue to fight against villains who want to destroy the Earth for more than 10 years. Although, as written in the diary, he failed in the end, and the Earth he was on was destroyed. Listening to Natasha Romanoff's analysis, Nick Fury nodded in agreement. Similar to what he analyzed, seeing Nick Fury nodding, Natasha Romanoff hesitated for a few seconds and said, "Director, what he wrote in his diary, that Tony hasn't been kidnapped yet, and everything hasn't officially started yet. So before that, he wanted to live a common life. I can actually understand this, just like I have been tired of tasks again and again, tired of my life. But if what happened in his world, the future really happens in our world, then Director, I suggest that you should contact him in advance, although he only wants to live the life of a commoner now. Are you interested in him?" Listening to Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury easily heard her subtext. Definitely. How could you not be interested? Facing Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff crossed her legs and said with a smile, "The superhero in the parallel world, it should be very interesting to touch. Also, now that he's full of stress and anxiety and even deeply blamed for failing to save his world, I think maybe he needs a psychiatrist at this moment. As it happens, I'm still very professional in this area. What's more, I also want to test the authenticity of this diary. After all, only by getting in touch with him can I evaluate him more deeply. If he recognized me right away, it doesn't matter whether he pretended not to know me or revealed my identity directly. At least it can show that the content written in this diary should have some credibility." Putting his legs down, Natasha Romanoff looked at Nick Fury. He said that among the people SHIELD can trust now is me. Then such a good opportunity, I think I should go and meet him. After all, I really want to know now, in that Avengers team, was I the first to retire or the first to die? Looking at Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff spoke seriously and with interest. Chapter 8. This is the real reward. System prompt. Since Wanda Django Maximoff has reached 90% trust, a special reward for the full version of water control ability, and reward the simulated diary function once. Simulation introduction. Suche can simulate what happened in the diary to change the host's demeanor, experience, etc. Looking at the rewards given by the system, Suche's eyes lit up slightly. Well, co-authoring the water control ability that I just obtained yesterday is a castrated version. The water control ability obtained now is the real full version. After receiving the water control ability, the next moment Suche felt that the surrounding air was full of water molecules. He slightly raised his hand, and in the next second, a group of deep blue water polo appeared in the empty space in front of him. With a thought, Jean Blue's water polo sometimes turned into dozens of blue swords, and sometimes turned into a terrifying water beast. It seems that as long as Suche gives an order, these water swords and water beasts can directly penetrate the enemy in front of them. As if getting a new toy, he kept changing the Jean Blue water polo into any shape. After playing for a while, Suche let the water polo wrap himself. A thick layer of water enveloped Suche's whole body. Standing in the middle of the water mass, Suche found that he could not only breathe in the water. Even as long as you think about it, even your clothes will not be soaked. Even if the clothes are soaked, you only need to wave your hand lightly, and the clothes can be cleaned immediately without the need for the washing machine to spin the dryer. Well, with this ability, you can save money on a washing machine. Well, if the above is just a joke, then Suche thinks that he has this ability to control water. Then if you stand in the middle of the ocean, wouldn't you be invincible? And with this full version of ability, Suche no longer needs to carry a bottle of water with him. By simply waving your hands, you can turn the water molecules in the air into weapons to attack the enemy. Don't think that water's attack is weak. In fact, the energy of water is quite terrifying. To give an inappropriate example, the energy of a high-pressure water gun can easily cut a stone slab. And Suche is like a human-shaped high-pressure water gun at this moment, as long as the energy of the water is enough. Then Suche can even easily destroy a mountain with water arrows. Well, if the full version of water control ability makes Suche very happy, then this simulation reward was what surprised Suche the most. Just imagine, writing in your diary, how your parallel world collapsed. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't save that world in the end. After meeting Natasha Romanoff or Nick Fury, people found that they didn't have the emotions written in the diary at all. Don't tell me now? At least it will become very difficult to make them 100% believe what they wrote in the diary. After all, sometimes lies can be told, but that kind of experience cannot be faked. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, Suche took a deep breath and then gave instructions to the system. Start to simulate the scene of the destruction of the world that I wrote in my diary. Following Suche's command, the next second, his eyes were dazzled, and the space began to flicker. In just a moment, the surrounding scenery changed rapidly in his mind. A strong sense of science fiction slowly formed in front of my eyes. In the blink of an eye, Suche seemed to appear in a ruined wall. And sitting around are those superheroes who were scarred and survived. What are you thinking? Hawkeye, who was wearing a hearing aid, patted Suche on the shoulder and then began to ramble about her daughter and another good seedling he found. It seems to be enjoying the second generation of Hawkeye joining the Avengers, and he can enjoy the time of retirement. On the side, Thor, Loki, and others are also describing the future life, and Dr. Banner from Hulk Integrate is talking about children's upbringing with Ant-Man and the Green Titan. It can be said that the whole atmosphere is extremely relaxed. It seems to be the kind of ease of victory after the war. Yes, it is the ease after victory, not the carnival after victory. Suche could clearly feel that his mentality was being affected. It seems as if I have also experienced more than 10 years of Avenger career, saving the world time and time again. So there is no carnival joy in saving the world again. Yes, it's just a sense of relief after saving the world again. Just when the mentality was slowly changing, the next second the world was dark. Looking around, countless Kong the Conqueror appeared in the sky in front of him on various timelines. Beside countless Conqueror Kong, there are countless monsters. At the top of the sky, There seemed to be a group of gods who seemed to be bigger than the earth, looking down at the people like themselves. It seems that the earth will be easily crushed by them in the next second. Chapter 9, the upcoming first meeting. Call. After the simulation came back, Su-Che subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. In the simulated scene of the system, just now, Su-Che seemed to have really experienced the doomsday catastrophe compiled by himself. Depression, fear, palpitations, despair, all kinds of negative emotions enveloped Su-Che's heart. Even the moment when the Tiantian group looked down at everyone in the vast sky and then crushed the earth with one hand, Su-Che seemed to really feel the feeling of dying in despair. Taking a deep breath, he dispelled all the negative emotions in his heart, subconsciously looking at the mirror on the wall. Only then did Su-Che suddenly realize that although he was still 19 years old in the mirror, he was still so handsome. But the sense of vicissitudes in his eyes couldn't go away no matter what. It was as if I was really like the diary I compiled. It's the same as experiencing these hopeless things in parallel universes. I got up and went to the balcony to exercise my muscles and bones and closed my eyes to feel the warmth brought by the sun. After a long time, the various negative emotions in Su-Che's heart slowly dissipated. This simulation really can't be tried lightly. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have used the reason of the end of the world, Kong the Conqueror, and the Celestial team to destroy the Earth. However, at least you don't have to worry about it now, after Nick Fury or the Widow find themselves. I see right through myself. Well, just like the system said, stories can be edited, but experience cannot be faked. Especially people like Widow or Nick Fury. It is a basic operation to see through a person based on a person's actions, even micro-expressions. Especially Nick Fury, the so-called king of agents, Mayor Frank. If there is any doubt about a common heart, then if this person does not have a certain amount of experience, just relying on the development trend of the future timeline to talk in front of him, I'm afraid he can tear it apart at a glance. Never underestimate anyone. This is the rule that Su-Che set for himself after traveling to this Marvel world. Although I know what will happen in the future, if I look down on others because of this, then I'm afraid it will really capsize in the gutter. Su-Che's guess was not wrong. In fact, whether it was Nick Fury or Natasha Romanoff, they were already smart. If it's common, there's no way to be like them. Like now, in the diary, Su-Che wrote that he did not trust SHIELD, or that he could only trust those few people in S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff saw it all. Still, Natasha Romanoff didn't ask Nick Fury that question when she left. The SHIELD, without asking him what is called the moment, is not the real S.H.I.E.L.D. Not to mention asking why the rest of SHIELD can't be trusted. Natasha Romanoff didn't ask, and Nick Fury didn't say. It's just that when the Widow's sister left, Nick Fury's expression became uneasy. As the king of agents, as the person in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D., as a person who doesn't have any special super abilities, but can single-handedly form a team of super abilities like Avengers, Nick Fury had an extremely absurd guess in his mind. However, he didn't tell anyone. According to the clues in the diary, 70% of the Tony Su-Che mentioned should be Tony Stark. Otherwise, he wouldn't open the coffee shop Peach Blossom Forest opposite Stark Industry. People always like to be close to the people they trust and know the most. This is one of the subconscious nature of human beings. But according to what he said, the prelude to everything started when Tony Stark would be kidnapped. Thinking of this, Nick Fury tapped the table lightly. The next moment, the holographic projection of Tony Stark appeared directly in front of Nick Fury. Watch a holographic projection of Tony Stark, as well as his latest itinerary and some news. Nick Fury gradually began to think. Su-Che opened the coffee shop opposite the Stark Industry, but the diary did not clearly state that he wanted to stop the kidnapping. So that means this kidnapping about Tony Stark will be one of the turning points in Tony's fate. And according to the speculation in the diary, the prelude to this kidnapping should be something that happened recently. Otherwise, this Su-Che wouldn't use the word rest for a while. Leaning on the chair and pinching his chin, Nick Fury frowned and looked at the holographic projection of Tony Stark in front of him. But in his mind, He was imagining whether he should send someone to follow Tony Stark to stop this upcoming kidnapping case. After thinking for more than 10 seconds, Nick Fury decided to do nothing for the time being. After all, it is not difficult to see based on the speculation in the diary. Although Tony Stark will be kidnapped, his life will not be in danger. On the contrary, this will become one of the factors that will turn Tony Stark, an arrogant playboy, into a superhero. Whether it changes what happens in the future, Nick Fury doesn't care. What he really cares about is what happens in the future of his world written in Suche's guest diary in this parallel world. Will the same happen in my own world? This is the most important. Turned off Tony Stark's hologram. Nick Fury is looking forward to now, Natasha Romanoff, and Suche's upcoming first meeting. Perhaps this will bring some unexpected surprises to myself. Chapter 10: Tony was kidnapped. I'm so relieved. Seriously, Nick Fury doesn't care how many people die or who they die. In fact, in his career over the years, he has seen too many deaths. Many of them were even sent away by him. But Tony Stark was different after all. Although Tony Stark is a selfish, arrogant playboy, it's just not likable at all. However, his father is Mr. Howard Stark after all, one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because Mr. Howard Stark and Ms. Maria died that Christmas night. So Nick Fury felt that as the controller of S.H.I.E.L.D., he needed to ensure that Tony Stark could survive safely. Besides, Ms. Page is still alive. But if there is no life-threatening, just be kidnapped and suffer some torture. In the end, it allows him to grow and become a superhero. While Nick Fury thinks it's all worth it. At least, that's what Mr. Howard Stark and Ms. Maria hope to see. So about Tony Stark being kidnapped by Dow, Nick Fury chose to put it aside. What he wants to see now is Natasha Romanoff and this mysterious parallel universe traveler. The owner of the Black Gold Diary, Suche's first meeting. Perhaps this will bring you unexpected surprises. Well, that's what Nick Fury made himself think on purpose to distract himself from that absurd guess. Although, Nick Fury cannot 100% trust the contents of this Black Gold Diary. However, some preparation should be done. Early the next morning, Manhattan, across from Stark Industries. Inside the Teowallen Cafe. Morning, boss. Good morning, sir. Seeing Suche walk in, the staff of the coffee shop greeted Suche warmly. From an ice cream parlor employee to a coffee shop employee. These people don't mind that jobs and bosses all change. After all, compared to the weekly salary of 130 yuan a week at an ice cream shop, the weekly salary of 200 yuan per week in the coffee shop is even more attractive to them. Good morning. Seeing the three very beautiful employees greeting him, Suche responded with a smile one by one. This ice cream shop is very big, so the size of the coffee shop will naturally not be small. After all, in Manhattan, a place where every inch of land is very expensive, if it is a small ice cream shop, I am afraid that it will not make much money at all. The daily expenses of water, electricity, rent are a large number. Not to mention the salaries of the 3 college students. Well, Suche has a total of 6 employees, and they always have to change shifts. Boss, is it still the same? Looking at Suche, Selena asked with a sweet smile. Definitely. Okay, black coffee without sugar will be delivered to your place immediately. For more than half a month, the employees here have long been familiar with the boss, who likes to drink black coffee without sugar. At the same time, I always like to sit near the window, where I can get the sun. Although I don't know why my boss always likes to sit in a position where he can bask in the sun. But this does not prevent them from liking their boss. After all, generous, don't arrange extra work for them. Bosses who don't criticize their jobs, don't harass them, well, that doesn't count. Anyway, Suche is the best boss. Besides, the boss is so handsome. It is normal for the 3 views to follow the 5 senses. The only pity is that the boss doesn't seem to have much interest in them. Otherwise, it would be good to go on a few dates and experience the flogging from the East. Coupled with a young man who can open a coffee shop in Manhattan, where every inch of land is precious. There must be a lot of family property. If he can get his hands on it, he will be a proper son-in-law, the kind who will struggle for decades less. Hey, Superman, did the sun give you strong Kryptonian powers today? Walking into the coffee shop, I looked at Suche, who was sitting by the window drinking black coffee and basking in the sun. Peepo greeted with a smile. as Tony Stark's personal assistant and personal secretary. As someone who works at Stark Industries almost every day, Peepo is definitely familiar with this original ice cream parlor, which is now a coffee shop. And after going back and forth, she also became acquainted with Suche, the owner of this coffee shop. After all, as an elite, Peepo likes to sit in the coffee shop every day after work. Enjoy a rare afternoon of leisure time. Peepo was still very curious about Suche, even though he was young, even more than 10 years younger than himself. But whether it is mental maturity, speech, or personal cultivation, they're all perfect enough. The most important thing is that the trace in the eyes does not match the age, as if he has experienced many things and can see through all the vicissitudes and mysteries. That's attractive enough. Women like this tune. Peepo is no exception. There is also a reason for calling him Superman. After all, those who like to bask in the sun are not necessarily called Superman. Definitely, it doesn't involve a relationship between a man and a woman. Looking at Peepo, who was sitting across from him with a coffee, Suche laughed. I don't know if I will transform into Superman, but I'm very clear about your skipping work today. Who said I skipped work? Taking a sip of the coffee, Peepo chuckled lightly. I just checked in at Stark Industry. So you see, I've already clocked in, which already means I'm at work. So how can you say I'm skipping work? Facing Suche's words, Peepo responded with a smile. That's right, after all, punching in the card means that the person has come. However, I think Mr. Tony Stark's chance to go to the desert to show off his weapons gave Peepo enough personal time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to show up in the coffee shop early in the morning. Listening to Peepo's joking words, Suche picked up his coffee and laughed. Don't tell me. Tony went to the desert to show off his weapons, which really made me feel a lot easier. Otherwise, having to help a young child deal with all kinds of things and all kinds of daily garbage every day is always not so pleasant. Nodding his head, Peepo agreed with Suche's words. Tony's departure really gave Peepo enough personal time. At least, as it is now, I can show up in the coffee shop early in the morning. Chapter 11. Natasha Romanoff thinks she's got something. Jingle! The door of the coffee shop was pushed open, the breeze was blowing, and the wind chimes were crisp and pleasant. Hello! Coming to the coffee shop table, Natasha Romanoff looked at the staff and asked with a smile. I saw the job. Is this a waiter job? Yes, but the boss is there. Hearing Natasha Romanoff say that she is here to apply for a waiter, the waiter smiled and pointed to Suche, who was sitting by the window. Okay, thanks. Smiling at Selena, Natasha Romanoff walked towards Suche's seat. It seems that you're coming to work. Then I won't bother you for now. Listening to the conversation at the service desk, Peepo turned his head to Suche and said, It's just right, I have to go back and sort out some materials. When Tony comes back the day after tomorrow, I will start to get busy again. See you. Hearing what Peepo said, Suche nodded. See you later, Mr. Superman. Waving his hand at Suche, Peepo smiled and got up to leave. At the same time, inside SHILD, Nick, I've already found the information you want. Handing a USB flash drive to Nick Fury, Maria Hill said seriously. This person is really weird. At least I can't find any trace of this person named Suche half a month ago. Whether it's air ticket records, real estate, cars, etc., everything can't be found. Even the life records from half a month ago can't be found. It's as if he appeared in this world out of thin air half a month ago. Listening to Hill's words, Nick Fury nodded and said he understood. This file will be archived after I read it. The confidentiality level? Level 10. At the same time, anyone but me is prohibited from reading it. Originally, Nick Fury is SHILD level 10. Files belong to level 10. That is, the highest level of confidentiality. Anyone except SHILD level 10 agents is prohibited from viewing it. So besides Nick Fury, who is the defense? You mean Mr. Secretary General has a problem? Facing Nick Fury's order, Maria Hill frowned slightly. Do you need me to communicate with the World Security Council? Well, Maria Hill was the first person on the World Security Council who they sent over to oversee Nick Fury's work. Only later, Maria Hill gradually favored Nick Fury. Even some secret things of SHILD help Nick Fury hide from the World Security Council at times. That's why Nick Fury trusted Hill more and more. Even when I arrived at the moon base later, I took Hill with me. There is no need to communicate with the World Security Council for the time being, as if nothing happened. As for the Secretary General, I don't doubt Pierce, let alone doubt him easily. It's just that there are some things that no one can see. Clear. Listening to Nick Fury's words, Maria Hill nodded. Although she knew Nick Fury was lying, but still chose to believe Nick Fury's words. Although he also knew that she knew he was lying. But isn't that what partners are? Many things cannot be explained clearly. More importantly, Nick Fury really didn't want to doubt Alexander Pierce. On the one hand, he recommended him to be the chief of the Bureau. On the other hand, as the former director of SHIELD and the current Secretary General of SHIELD, he is responsible for the bridge of communication with the World Security Council on the surface. Once you suspect others, if you don't do it well, SHIELD will become turbulent. This is no joke. Watching Hill turn and leave, Nick Fury tapped the watch lightly, and the next moment a USB flash drive socket appeared on the watch. Connect the USB flash drive, and the holographic projection information about Su-Che appears in front of Nick Fury. Looking at the handsome image and information of Su-Che displayed on the holographic projection, Nick Fury focused on where Su-Che first appeared. This information is so detailed that even the records of purchasing real estate, purchase records of coffee shops, and records of daily withdrawal of money or swiping cards can be displayed. It really appeared out of thin air. All the traces and traces of life before are all blank. But where did he get his money? If he is really a person from a parallel world, then the bank deposits from the parallel world can also be used in this world. Watching Hill go through a night of investigation, the information does not show Su-Che, a guest from the parallel world. Where did the money used come from? Nick Fury pondered for a moment, and then began to decipher all the details on the information. Not even the tiniest detail is spared. Nick Fury, who has always been suspicious of everything, even though he was once the highest trust value among the 3 diary holders. But he still wanted to analyze something from this information. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. What matters is what Su-Che can bring to this world. That's what Nick Fury cares about most. Inside the Teowalan Cafe. Definitely no problem. In fact, like the other 2 waiters, I also choose to work part-time. Sitting opposite Su-Che, Natasha Romanoff said with a charming smile. At the same time, he was constantly evaluating the young man in front of him from the bottom of his heart. The more she evaluated, the more surprised Natasha Romanoff was. Although, the Su-Che in front of him looks very young on the surface. But the sense of vicissitudes inadvertently revealed between the eyebrows cannot be hidden, and the whole person reveals a trace of mystery, as if a secret treasure is waiting to be discovered, including age-inappropriate maturity versus just seeing yourself after. Natasha Romanoff easily caught the inadvertent touch of sadness and nostalgia in her eyes. Obviously, the young man in front of him definitely has a lot of stories. It seems that this time I came by myself. Chapter 12. Natasha Romanoff thinks it's better to hide a little bit noon. Does our boss stay here all morning, every day? Watching Su-Che leave, Natasha Romanoff, who was wearing a cafe outfit, asked Selena with a smile, as if she was chatting. Definitely, this is the boss's personal habit. In the face of Natasha Romanoff's inquiry, Selena is trying to become the manager of this Teowalan Cafe. He explained with a smile, "Every morning, our boss will come here and sit in the second row by the window, because the sunshine is the best there. At this time, our boss always likes to drink a cup of hand-ground black coffee without sugar." Black coffee without sugar? Facing Selena's words, Natasha Romanoff deliberately pretended to be a little surprised. Slightly sour and very bitter black coffee without sugar. Our boss actually likes this taste? Who knows? Very neatly cleared up the account of the bar counter in the morning. Selena looked at the newcomer Natasha Romanoff and said, "Under normal circumstances, Mr. Boss will stay here all morning. Sometimes he also has lunch here at noon. He still prefers to eat fried chicken. His favorite fruit is watermelon. In addition, although our boss is only 19 years old, Duogene is single. So if you want to do it as soon as possible. You know, you are not the only one who asked me about our boss's situation. A lot of girls really want to date him." Listening to Selena's words, Natasha Romanoff raised her eyebrows slightly. "So, Our boss is very popular? Definitely young and rich and so handsome. He has extraordinary manners and elegant conversation. And from time to time, he exudes a faint, mysterious, and melancholy temperament. God, this makes the girls have no resistance at all? Okay. Who wouldn't want to conquer such a mysterious prince from the East? In addition, such a large coffee shop can be opened in a place where every inch of land is precious in Manhattan. And he is so sincere and generous to people. As long as he is taken down, it will save 10 years of struggle. Okay. Listening to Selena's almost all praises, Natasha Romanoff picked up a cup of coffee and smiled. What about you? Selena, don't you want to date our boss? I. Listening to Natasha Romanoff's question, Selena smiled without hiding it. If our boss wants to date me, then he only needs to hook his fingers lightly, and I will never refuse, and I will even wash myself and send me to the boss bedroom. Do you know? Many girls in the store, even some girls who came here on purpose in the morning, came for our boss. Everyone is no longer a girl of 16 or 17 and knows what the real society is like. Speaking of this, Selena hesitated for a few seconds. However, I still want to use my own efforts to become the manager of this coffee shop. After becoming a store manager, not only will the weekly salary increase to 500 knives, but more importantly, there will be some commissions. As long as I can become the store manager, then I can give my family a better life. At least I can afford my sister's college fees next year. To be honest, Selena didn't know why she was talking about this to Natasha Romanoff, who just came here all morning. But Selena always felt that Natasha Romanoff, who looked only a few years older than herself, was a good person. And it's different from the other girls in the store. Selena, who grew up as a single-parent family, was always inexplicably attracted to the maternal brilliance of Natasha Romanoff. Unconsciously, he has a crush on her, like a bosom big sister. It's very strange. Obviously, I just met her for less than a morning. After chatting for a while, looking at the waiter who came to take over after lunch, Natasha Romanoff smiled and went to prepare lunch. Smiling and declining Selena's invitation, Natasha Romanoff chose to go home alone for lunch. Watching Natasha Romanoff leave, Selena was ready to go to lunch alone. For Natasha Romanoff, she had to go back to make lunch for her brother at noon. Selena thought it was perfect. No wonder I hit it off with Natasha Romanoff so much. She has to support her brother, and she has to support her own sister. Earn tuition for my sister to go to college. Gosh, Natasha Romanoff is just another version of me, okay? It was decided that Natasha Romanoff would work part-time here in the future. Even if she was a few minutes late, Selena decided that she would help her hide it. Around the corner, inside a dark car. Picking up the lunchbox, I looked at the sandwiches that had been in it all morning. Natasha Romanoff hesitated for a few seconds, then ate a sandwich and called Nick Fury. Well, I've been in contact with Suche, the owner of the diary, and I have probably made some comments about him. Still, something about Suche's love of things like fried chicken and watermelon. Natasha Romanoff didn't feel the need to tell Nick Fury. Otherwise, if cotton fields are added, then the three elements will be gathered together, okay? Even though Nick Fury is the director of SHIELD, this kind of thing. Who knows? Chapter 13, Natasha Romanoff's analysis of Suche's first meeting. Legs crossed on the frame. Natasha Romanoff reclined in the seat, eating a sandwich and videoing Nick Fury. I'm sure there are many things that can't be fooled. Looking at Nick Fury while eating a sandwich, Natasha Romanoff said very seriously, "Actually, he recognized me from the first moment he saw me. It's just not exposed, but I think he should think that I have some mission or choose a way to relax after the mission is over, rather than deliberately approaching him. So, on the premise that he doesn't affect me, he didn't expose me directly." Then what was Suche's reaction after seeing you? Listening to Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury continued to ask. Nostalgic, if you have to use a suitable word to describe it, then it should be excitement and nostalgia. It's like suddenly seeing an old friend whom I haven't seen for a long time. Excited but rusty. Speaking of which, Natasha Romanoff threw the half-eaten sandwich into the lunchbox. Nick, you know I'm not a picky eater. Even when I'm in a desperate situation or on a mission, I've eaten other things that are more unpalatable. But can you change the cook in SHIELD's cafeteria? Our budget is not that tight. This sandwich is a bit sour. Listening to Natasha Romanoff's complaint, Nick Fury didn't care. Anyway, according to your physical fitness, even if the sandwich stinks, you won't damage your body from eating it. Okay, let's get down to business. What's your first impression of this Sue Che? How should I put it? This is definitely someone who has experienced a lot. Listening to the director's words, I recalled the scene of chatting with Sue Che for a few words in my mind. Natasha Romanoff withdrew her foot from the frame, and her expression became serious. No matter in terms of behavior or words and deeds, this is not a feeling that a 19-year-old young man can express. There are even some temperaments that cannot be pretended. It's an aura that has weathered the world, but is still tenacious. This is in line with what is written in the diary, the 10-year career of superhero Avengers. Although this conversation was not long, I could detect a hint of anxiety and fatigue in his eyes. This is also in line with what is said in the diary. Every night, even in his dreams, he is subconsciously looking for a way to save the world. Overall, when we met for the first time, he left a deep impression on me. I kind of like the sense of vicissitudes in his eyes filled with stories. It's quite attractive. Having said that, Natasha Romanoff hesitated for a moment before finally picking up the half-eaten sandwich. In addition, from the perspective of behavior, he likes to sit in the coffee shop by the window most every morning. Drinking a cup of unsweetened hand-ground black coffee while basking in the sun doesn't seem to have much meaning at first glance. It's just a person who likes to bask in the sun and drink bitter coffee. But in fact, bitter coffee can refresh you and help you concentrate on thinking. And I have observed all the places in that coffee shop. The position he is in is the most convenient distance from the doors and windows. If something happens outside, the person sitting in this position can go out to support as soon as possible. At the same time, if there is any danger in the coffee shop, that position can rush to stop it as soon as possible. Looking at Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff said seriously, "What kind of person would subconsciously sit in the most convenient position to prevent danger and support, rather than escape and cause chaos?" Nick, perhaps this is what is written in the diary, one of the proofs of his 10-year superhero career. Even the seat, I have become accustomed to subconsciously choosing a position that can protect others in the first place. Hearing Natasha Romanoff say this, Nick Fury was silent for a moment. I'm thinking, after more than 10 years of superhero career, I came to our world inexplicably because of my inability to save the world from destruction. But why is he 19? So young. And Natasha Romanoff, according to Hill survey data, he really seems to have come to this world more than half a month ago. All the life trajectories and life imprints of half a month ago are gone. It seems to have appeared out of thin air. So, where did his money come from? I made a range map based on his life trajectory in the past half month. The investigation in the morning found that there was no criminal record. You think he committed a crime? Listening to Nick Fury's words, Natasha Romanoff suddenly laughed. Nick, it looks like you've been in SHIELD for too long and have forgotten some unconventional ways of doing things. Looking at Nick Fury in the video, Natasha Romanoff said with a relaxed expression, "For those of us, it seems that money is never the most difficult thing to get. Take me as an example. I can easily get millions without being discovered by others, and the source of the money is definitely the kind that can withstand investigation. Don't forget, if what's written in the diary is true, then as a super ability user who has been with us for more than 10 years, do you think this kind of thing can be difficult for him?" Chapter 14, Nick Fury. Natasha Romanoff, don't mess with Sue. Nick, the only thing I'm worried about now is that the pressure is too great, and it will cause a slight change in his heart. Looking at Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff also put away her joking look. Excessive pressure often destroys a person's mind, although agent psychology has nothing to do with him. But in fact, I feel the same way. I have been secretly observing him all morning. I found that besides playing with his mobile phone for a while sitting there, he was more thinking. As for what to think about, I think we should know. It's nothing more than self-blame for not being able to save that world. And once this parallel world falls into the same dangerous situation, how should he find a way to save it? It can be said that now he feels that he bears the pressure of the whole world. If it's been like this for a long time, I'm really worried. Natasha Romanoff didn't say anything, but Nick Fury understood what she wanted to say. Over the years, Nick Fury has definitely seen the behavior of many agents under pressure. In fact, someone who can become a SHIELD agent. The quality of heart is far beyond the kind of common people. But once such a person has psychological problems, the harm caused is often huge amounts of. It can even cause big waves. That's why SHIELD psychologists are very busy. Every member of SHIELD receives treatment from a psychiatrist after completing their mission. It has even become a rule to do regular psychological counseling for members of SHIELD. However, Suche is different. Although he has been a superhero for more than 10 years, he has witnessed and experienced the horrible catastrophe with his own eyes. It is conceivable how much stress and anxiety he is feeling at this moment. Besides, he doesn't have his own psychiatrist, although it is not yet known what Suche's ability is. But once such a superhero has problems in his heart, he starts to become paranoid, stubborn, and even then I am afraid that the harm to this world will be far more violent than the SHIELD agent. Definitely, despite this premise, Nick Fury believes that Suche should never be regarded as a potential threat to the world. After all, Suche has been an Avenger in the parallel world for more than 10 years and has saved the parallel world countless times. Then he was originally a superhero. For such a superhero, Nick Fury definitely can't. Wait, forcing this idea to stop abruptly, Nick Fury looked up at Natasha Romanoff in the video. Natasha Romanoff, don't you feel that the so-called assumptions we are making now are getting more and more deviated from the original track? Even the premise of the conversation between the two of us just now is that we have already trusted the content written in the diary. I have already accepted the setting that Suche is the Avenger of the parallel world. So I started to continue the conversation. This is not the same as our original intention of seeking proof. Our initial idea was to prove the owner of Suche's diary. I want to see if he is a superhero as written in the diary, instead of thinking about these things after that. Listening to Nick Fury's words, Natasha Romanoff was also taken aback. Yes, my original purpose was to verify the owner of Suche, the diary. Is it really the traverser of the parallel world, or is it the so-called Avenger? Etc. When did I start observing Suche with preconceived notions? This can run counter to their own professionalism. What's more, it's just a morning of observation, and I haven't talked to more than a dozen sentences. Why did I suddenly believe in him so much and started to think for him? Carefully recalled the scene when we first met. Natasha Romanoff felt that after seeing Suche, he noticed the flash of surprise and nostalgia for seeing the old man in his eyes, coupled with the sense of vicissitudes between his brows and the eyes full of stories. It is precisely because of the influence of the eyes and the content written in the diary on me. That's why I subconsciously believed in him preconceived. Seeing that Natasha Romanoff also reacted, Nick Fury suddenly laughed. Natasha Romanoff, what do you think now? Wei Wei was silent for a moment. Put yourself in the position of the third perspective and start from the beginning as an observer. Natasha Romanoff thought for a few seconds, then turned to Nick Fury and said, not sure, but I stand by my opinion. During the whole contact process, I didn't notice that this young man named Suche was pretending to be anything. On the contrary, the surprise and nostalgia after he recognized me gave me new insights. What opinion? Listening to what Natasha Romanoff said, Nick Fury asked, I think I should be the one written in the diary among the Avengers, the one who died first, not the one who chose to retire. If that's the case, then this look makes sense. Speaking of this, Natasha Romanoff looked at Nick Fury and suddenly smiled. Nick, a lot of things are starting to become interesting. Don't be silly. Looking into Natasha Romanoff's eyes, Nick Fury had a headache. He knew that once Natasha Romanoff's so-called interesting eyes appeared, it proved that she was ready to use her own way. Nick, there are often only a few ways to relieve anxiety and stress. Listening to Nick Fury's words, Natasha Romanoff leaned back on the seat, with a hint of laziness in her tone. I like target shooting, and I like to use this method to relieve anxiety and stress. The bartender at the bar. Either become a white-collar worker in a company. I like to use this method to relieve stress. But other people are different. Other SHIELD agents relieve anxiety and stress. In addition to suppressive drugs, the most common ones are psychologists, bullets, women, and alcohol. You can't hang on a tree every day and look into the distance, after all. Not everyone is like Eagle Boy. Stretching and looking at the time on the watch, Natasha Romanoff said to Nick Fury, "Don't worry, I know it. At least make sure what his ability is. Until then, I still stand by my judgment. Sue, it should be a treasure waiting to be unearthed, at least for our world." Chapter 15, The Third Diary. You should believe it. Inside the apartment, sitting on the sofa, Suche kept replaying the scene when he met Natasha Romanoff in his mind. When she first saw Natasha Romanoff entering the coffee shop, Suche immediately reminded herself to simulate the scene written in her diary. After Natasha Romanoff sat opposite her, there was a sense of vicissitudes in her eyes and the surprise and nostalgia of seeing her old friend. It also reached the extreme in an instant. If it wasn't for the fact that I pressed down on purpose, there would be a sudden burst of strong emotions in my heart. Maybe he will make himself think that he is really the avenger of the parallel world compiled in the diary. Whether it's the conversation about temporary job hunting later or your own performance in the morning, there are no omissions in the review results. Well, fortunately, the rewards given by the system simulate what I wrote in my diary. Otherwise, this level is really difficult. After all, they are professionals, and they can tell whether an untrained commoner is lying or not at a glance. Turning on the system, looking at the system, Natasha Romanoff's trust value has increased by less than 10%. Well, this is a good thing. It shows that Natasha Romanoff is not suspicious of herself. At least for the time being, she has not strongly doubted the contents of the diary she compiled. I lean on my chin and thought about it. Maybe I should add fuel to the fire. After all, according to the personality set that I compiled for myself, after meeting Natasha Romanoff, I should write a journal to express my inner emotions. This is in line with the basic personality. Well, since Nick Fury sent Natasha Romanoff over here, let's work hard with Natasha Romanoff. It's a pity that Wanda has the highest trust rate now, and it has reached 90%. This should be the reason for the meeting in Teowallan written by me alone, and those love stories full of regrets. After all, Wanda is only 14 years old now, and it is time to look forward to love. So for her trust value, I can compile some. Why does it sound like a big bad wolf fooling a little white rabbit? Cleared his throat. Opened the system compilation page. Suche began to think about how to relate himself to Natasha Romanoff. Thinking back to the Widow's movies I've seen, his relationship with Dr. Banner, and her relationship with Hawkeye. Thinking about it, Suche's eyes lit up. After sorting out the conceived ideas, Suche is ready to start writing the third diary. Well, this diary should not only write about the relationship between myself and the Widow's sister, but also write about what is about to happen. This will ensure that Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff believe in themselves even more. And let's not forget about Wanda. Although Wanda's trust in diary compilation has reached 90%, Tisk, it's only 10% short. Whether I can become stronger depends on you, my lovely Wanda. After sorting out his thoughts, Suche began to compile. SHILD, Nick Fury's office. After dealing with some documents that he needs to sort out daily, Nick Fury turned his attention back to the Avengers roster. This list is revealed in Black Gold's diary. Although some people are still unknown to me, this does not prevent me from being able to guess some, such as Tony, Natasha Romanoff, Barton, Dr. Bruce Banner, etc. In addition, he also began to send people to monitor Dr. Pym, although I know that he may not be the Ant-Man written in the diary. But this does not prevent him from sending someone to monitor him to see if he is preparing to train the second generation of Ant-Man. I have to say that with what's written in the diary, Nick Fury feels a lot easier about his vision for the Avengers piece. Although some members still need to consider their personalities, ways of doing things, ways of acting, and other factors. But at least, this Black Gold diary has given itself a rough range. Although I've been thinking for a long time whether the horrible and desperate doomsday catastrophe written in the first entry of the diary will happen in the future. But Nick Fury prefers to keep his eyes on the present and start sorting things out for the Avengers. If the Avengers can be sorted out in advance. So, maybe what was written in the diary, SHILD is not the real SHILD, is not worthy of trust. I have more backhands. Flip through the Black Gold diary from time to time to see if the diary is updated. It's become a daily routine for Nick Fury. If it wasn't for TSK, I really want to arrest Suche, lock him up alone, and make him write a diary every day or ask him directly what will happen in the future. Unfortunately, I can't do that myself. Whether it's for the future Avengers or Suche, the superhero of the parallel world. Doing it yourself does more harm than good. Glancing at the computer screen in front of him, Nick Fury flipped through his diary. Looking at the third diary has not yet appeared. Nick Fury was slightly disappointed. Just as he was about to close the diary, the next moment, the text in pale gold slowly appeared. Seeing this scene, Nick Fury immediately regained his spirits, simultaneously pressed the buttons under the table. Although he knew that it was impossible for someone to monitor his office, others couldn't see this diary. However, there are some things that you have to guard against. After all, it has been clearly written in the diary, Childe is not as pure as I imagine now. Chapter 16, Nick Fury. Tony was attacked? This is great. Unexpectedly, the first person I met was Pepper Potts. In fact, we are all familiar with Peepo, because she is not only Tony's life assistant, not only the president of Stark Industries later. More importantly, she is also Tony's wife and Morgan Stark's mother. She often comes to my coffee shop these days, and it can be seen that she can relax a little these days when Tony Stark goes to the desert to display weapons. But she didn't know that this time Tony Stark would be attacked and kidnapped, and what kind of hardships he would go through. What kind of person will he become in the end? I think if Peepo knew what Tony would go through this time, then she would definitely not let Tony Stark go. Even if Tony will become one of the superheroes who will save the world in the future. It's like Tony Stark said after he came back by himself, the only person he trusts is Peepo. Look at the content written in Black Gold's diary. Nick Fury frowned momentarily. Nick Fury knew about Tony Stark's trip to the Middle East desert to display weapons. He also knew through the diary that Tony Stark would be kidnapped in the near future, thus becoming the so-called Iron Man in the future. But what I didn't expect was that the one who was kidnapped was this time. Whereas the desert, Childe, does not have a branch base there, let alone the power to act directly there. Although this time I sent Phil Coulson to lead people to follow quietly. But just in case something unexpected happens. Thinking of this, Nick Fury immediately took out his phone and called Phil Coulson. As soon as the phone was connected, the sound of gunfire came from the other end of the phone. Sir, as you predicted, Mr. Tony Stark's convoy has been attacked, and we are preparing to go to support it. Before Nick Fury could speak, Phil Coulson reported immediately. Listening to the hail of bullets on the phone, and even the sound of shells, Nick Fury paused slightly. It turned out to be the same as what was written in the diary. Tony Stark would be attacked and kidnapped in this desert weapon display. So does it mean that because of this kidnapping, Tony Stark will also become the superhero of the future Avengers in the diary? Thinking of this, after Nick Fury paused for a few seconds, there was no hesitation at all. Directly issued an order to Phil Coulson. Suspend support, no matter what happens. You should not reveal your whereabouts for the time being. At the same time, quietly send someone to follow the group that attacked Tony Stark and find out where they are. Remember, no matter what happens to Tony Stark, as long as Tony Stark's life is not in danger, then you don't have to rescue him. Desert area. Originally planned to bring SHILDS agent to support Tony Stark's Phil Coulson. After hearing Nick Fury's order, although he was puzzled, he still raised his hand to stop the people around him who were ready to act. Just watching the fierce battle and the sacrifice of those military people. Just as Phil Coulson was about to say something to the director, the next second he saw a cannonball land directly beside Tony Stark, who had escaped from the car. Oh my God! Before the sound of exclamation fell, Phil Coulson saw with his own eyes that Tony just got up and was about to run away. The next second, the cannonball exploded beside him. Although the distance is not very close, you can still see through the telescope the scene where Tony Stark is bleeding from his chest after being blown away by a shell. Sir, are you sure you don't need our support? Mr. Tony Stark's current situation seems to be very bad. The battle is over soon. Those guys are ready to take away the unconscious Tony Stark. The sound of the gun battle on the other side gradually disappeared. Nick Fury looked at the diary in front of him and frowned. However, there was no hesitation in the tone. Don't worry, but you need to follow and monitor them secretly until Tony Stark escapes himself. Well, Nick Fury chose to temporarily believe what Su Che wrote in this diary. If it really works this time, then maybe the content recorded in this diary. It will become your guide to action in the face of any emergencies in the future. After all, it is very beneficial for him to use the condition of a prophet to face emergencies. In contrast, let Tony Stark suffer some pain, as long as it is not fatal. Then it's no big deal. Yes, Mr. Director. After hanging up the phone, Phil Coulson took a look through the binoculars at Tony Stark, who had been carried into the car. Then he said to the SHIELD agent who was traveling with him, "The nature of the mission has changed. Now we have to follow them until we find out where they are hiding. At the same time, keep monitoring them. As long as Tony Stark's life is not in danger, then we don't need to take action." Listening to Phil Coulson's order, the accompanying SHIELD agent nodded. One of the agents asked Phil Coulson curiously, "Sir, is this an order from Mr. Director?" "It shouldn't be. After all, Tony Stark is Mr. Howard's son. Are you sure we will?" "Don't ask if you shouldn't. You should have learned it in Eagle's Nest." Before the agent could finish speaking, Phil Coulson waved his hand. One of SHIELD's goodies, Phil Coulson, wasn't prepared to hold this passerby-level agent's questioning nature to account. After all, he was also promoted from the passerby level. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D. After hanging up the phone, Nick Fury's expression remained unchanged, ready to continue reading the next content of the diary. Hopefully, this time it will really be as written in the diary. Chapter 17, compiled Natasha Romanoff. Wanda is jealous. What? Sokovia, inside the castle where Hydra is located. Looking at the contents written in the diary, Wanda was a little dissatisfied. It would be better if that damned Tony Stark died in the desert. In this way, my parents' revenge will be avenged. Really? Take a bite of Tony. Are you still my future husband? Thinking of the romantic things about myself and him in the future written in the second diary. Let yourself dream of sweet love. As a result, in the third diary, he actually called his enemies so kindly. Seeing this, Wanda became angry for a while. Why is this so? What husband? Pietro, who came in with dinner, seemed to hear Wanda say something about her husband inexplicably. As he handed her the dinner, he asked curiously, "Have you made a boyfriend? Is it the people in the training camp or the backup people? It can't be a locked-up experimental subject, right? What? Who would like those guys?" Listening to Pietro's words, Wanda raised her head and gave him a blank look. "It's just a bunch of immature brats. Don't forget that we are only 14 years old." Putting the lunch in front of Wanda, Pietro smiled and said, "Compared with them, our minds are indeed much mature. However, we haven't fully grown up yet. Do not bother me." Holding the black gold diary and turning around, Wanda didn't want to pay attention to Pietro anymore. "Although I am only 14 years old, girls are always more mature than boys of the same age. Not to mention Wanda, who has experienced ups and downs. Then you can't skip dinner. You're still growing. Even if you want to keep in shape, health is the most important thing." Looking at Wanda, who started holding the air again as if she was really looking at something, Pietro sighed slightly. He is obviously a big brother, but he wants to coax her into becoming her younger brother. At the same time, as a younger brother, he can exercise the rights of big brother to care for her. But forget it. As long as she is happy, it's okay to pretend to be naive or immature in front of her. As long as it can give her a sense of accomplishment as an older sister taking care of her younger brother. Then, it's fine to call her elder sister or pretend to be pitiful. I don't care. After all, she is her only relative in this world. "Okay, I know you eat first, Pietro. I will eat it later." Listening to Pietro's words, Wanda turned her head and gave Pietro a sweet smile. What stays in shape doesn't stay in shape. I have to grow up healthily and then protect my younger brother. Smiling sweetly at Pietro, Wanda continued to read her husband. It may become a diary written by her husband in the future. Among the black gold diaries, the third diary is still going on. "I saw her by accident. Natasha Romanoff. The moment I saw her, I trembled unconsciously. If it wasn't forcibly suppressing the emotions in her heart, I'm afraid she would really lose her name in excitement. I don't know if she came here to change her identity to hide so as to continue her mission, or the mission of SHIELD is over. so I want to change my identity to clean up my mood and experience a different life. No matter which one it is, I shouldn't call out her name or disturb her. Compared to other Avengers members, she is always different. At least my feelings for her are different. Seeing this, Wanda frowned slightly. Why is there another woman? What does it mean that the feelings for her are different? What about yourself? Didn't the first two diaries also say that she is his future wife? How come the feelings for this woman, named Natasha Romanoff, are different? Inexplicably, there was a hint of irritability in her heart, but Wanda didn't show it, but chose to continue watching. She wanted to see what kind of woman it was that made her future boyfriend and husband have unusual feelings for her. Actually, among our original Avengers members, the first person I met was Natasha Romanoff. When I first met her, she was a bartender, and when I saw her the second time, she became a restaurant waiter again. I have seen her in the company I used to work in, and I have also seen her in Yellowstone Park. She always has many identities: bartender, night DJ, waiter, tour guide. Later, after joining the first generation Avengers Alliance, I once asked her why she likes to change so many identities. She smiled and said to me that this is a way for her to release stress and experience different lives with different roles. This relieved her tense emotions. To be honest, I understand her preference because I didn't have a choice before. After all, the experience in the first half of his life was too cruel. Sometimes it's good to experience the life of some common people. It is precisely because I have no chance to live the life of common people that I long for it and yearn for it. People always yearn for a life they never had. To be honest, I'm still a little emotional now, because she is the most important reason why I joined the first generation Avengers Alliance. Chapter 18, the she who loved this home the most, but never came back. At the very beginning, she recruited me to join the original Avengers Alliance. Just like the fate of every superhero, in everyone's story, there will be one or several villains. Steve has been fighting Bucky and HYDRA, Tony Stark and his Uncle Iron King Whiplash False Ten Commandments gang. Thor is always unable to escape the influence of his family, whether it is Loki or Hela. Doctor Strange is leading the group of Mage Asgardian Earth to prevent pretenders from outside the territory. Natasha Romanoff, and I are no exception. She is the Red House, and my opponent is the Balrog, a guy who absorbs the energy of the jewel and transforms it into his own energy. Well, fake, but always make up an enemy for yourself. After all, every superhero has one or several enemies. Suche has to make up an enemy for himself, so it makes sense. Otherwise, how to show the ability and value of superhero? The Balrog. Looking at the contents recorded in the diary, Natasha Romanoff sat in the car and thought about the name or nickname carefully. It seems that I have never heard of a villain with this nickname. However, Natasha Romanoff didn't care but was going to continue watching. After all, Natasha Romanoff thought, after she met Suche, the owner of the diary, Suche will write himself in the diary. However, he didn't expect that he was more important in Suche's heart. Why is there a slight excitement for no reason? But it seemed that when he saw him, the flickering look in his eyes became even more excited. Although it was fleeting, it was still captured by myself. At first, I thought it was the kind of joy after seeing an old friend reunited. Unexpectedly, it turned out that he was very important in his heart. TSK. It's getting more and more interesting. However, looking at the contents recorded in the diary, the Red House still exists? Didn't I blow up the Red House with Hawkeye? Why are you still haunted? Did he blow up a fake one? Shaking her head, the widow's sister was ready to continue reading. If we say that at the beginning, Avengers was a superhero organization, the purpose was to unite super ability fighters to save the Earth. Then later, everyone spent a long time together, lived and died together more times, and finally gradually became a family. Although there have been various differences, and even because of that damn agreement, a civil war broke out between the Avengers Alliance. But all of us know that there has never been a single person who is willing to play a real heavy hand on the opposite party. During this process, Tony, who was concealed, was the saddest in his heart. Then Natasha Romanoff and I are the ones suffering the most. Because the two of us seem to have managed to have a family that must be valued. But in a blink of an eye, this family is torn apart and opposed to each other. A civil war broke out in the Avengers alliance because of a certain agreement. Seeing this, Nick Fury frowned slightly. What kind of agreement would lead to civil unrest within the Avengers, these superheroes, and each other? And most importantly, withholding from Tony Stark? What does this concealment refer to? And Steve. That's Steve? His enemies are Bucky and Hydra? If it is related to these two messages, then the first person that comes to mind is only one person. To think that that has passed away and become Legendary's name. Nick Fury sat up straight in an instant. Even his fine hairs felt a little trembling. Steve Rogers, one of the founders of SHIELD, the best friend of Howard Stark, and the love of Ms. Peggy Carter. A legendary hero who is gone, but will live forever in memorials and people's mouths. Thinking of the name from the connection in the diary, Nick Fury had a rare mood swing. There is no way not to be excited. You know, that's Steve Rogers. That's a legendary hero. Call. He let out a long breath, calming down his agitated heart, suppressing the excitement in his heart. Nick Fury continued to read the diary. Anyway, wait until after reading this diary. Nick Fury decided to immediately order people to re-find the place where Steve Rogers was flying a fighter plane that crashed. Must find him. A living Steve Rogers is always more valuable than a dead legendary hero. Diary continues. Later, after the Thanos flickering event, half of the population of the entire universe at that time had disappeared. When everyone has given up hope, even Tony chooses to live in seclusion with his family. Even Thor has become an alcoholic, and even Steve, resigned to his fate, set up a spiritual mutual aid club within his ability. My deepest memory is when Natasha Romanoff ate a sandwich in tears, but told Steve that if he tried to talk himself out of it, he would throw the sandwich in his face. Yes, everyone gave up. Only Natasha Romanoff is still persisting, standing alone in the empty Avengers Alliance base, persistently looking for the hope of bringing back the dead. Because she said that it was her home. Others can give up, but she can't. After all the hard work, she finally has a home, and she is reluctant to lose it like this. She said she would bring all her family back. For this, she is willing to do whatever it takes. As it turns out, she did it, and we finally did it. But the one who loved this family the most never came back. Chapter 19, Natasha Romanoff. Am I dead? Can really do this kind of thing. Inside the car. Look at what is written in the diary. The widow laughed self-deprecatingly. Sure enough, just as I imagined, I was not the first to retire, but the first to die. Raising his hand, he brushed Wine-Red's hair behind his head. Natasha Romanoff adjusted the seat and lay down, putting her feet on the steering wheel in front of her. He also began to think seriously in his mind if there really is such an Avengers. So what will I do? He grew up in the Red House, where he received brutal training and torture. After growing up, he gained the title of Black Widow, but was controlled by the Red House to do evil deeds that he couldn't forgive himself time and time again. With blood on his hands, he managed to escape from that place. Every day, he can only hide in Tibet, and he is constantly hunted down by the people from the Red House. It can be said that I was like a rat crossing the street during that time. Even worse than that. Later, this guy, Linte Barton, received an order from SHIELD to kill himself. But he pulled himself out of that quagmire without any hesitation and let himself join S.H.I.E.L.D. That is, since then, I have regarded SHIELD as an affiliation. Willingly help SHIELD complete mission after mission. But what if SHIELD is not really SHIELD? Thinking back to what was written in the first two entries of the diary, the current SHIELD is not trustworthy, and the current SHIELD is not the real S. SHIELD thinking of this, Natasha Romanoff opened his eyes, and there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. What Suche said in the diary should be true. Follow your own character. If I really join the Avengers in the future, then fight side by side with these guys and live and die together. Once the time has passed, I'm afraid I will really treat the Avengers as a big family. As Suche said, others have chosen to give up. Only myself will continue to choose to persevere and insist on bringing everyone back. The more people lack something, the more they desire something. And what I long for most precisely is a warm home, Call. With a long sigh of relief, Natasha Romanoff looked at the roof of the car. If your future self is doomed to sacrifice, then give up your life for the family you desire and cherish the most. Then maybe for myself at that time, I wouldn't have any regrets. Thinking about what she would do, Natasha Romanoff found that according to her own personality, it seems that I can really do these things. Thinking about it, Natasha Romanoff never noticed that the corners of her mouth were raised. It seems that in the future, I will definitely have a big family that I know and cherish very much. Really, hope to have it soon. As for the fact that I will die in the future, from the first day of escaping from the Red House, I have already prepared for this. Before he died, he successfully brought back all his family members. So what else can I complain about? Inexplicably feeling happier, Natasha Romanoff picked up the diary and continued to read. That's it. When I saw Natasha Romanoff this morning, I almost got excited and wanted to hug her, tell her how much I miss her. But fortunately, I held back. Otherwise, she, who doesn't know me now, might slap me directly or treat me as a crazy person who took advantage of me. However, after seeing Natasha Romanoff, I am a little grateful and regretful. Unfortunately, this is a parallel world after all. In my world, I will never see her again. People, I can no longer see her, who will help everyone in the Avengers alliance as soon as possible and always treats us as family. Fortunately, there is no other me in this parallel world, so he doesn't have to carry such a heavy burden like me. Yes, there is no other me in this parallel world. After I came to this parallel world, I tried to trace the traces of another me according to my past. But after all, there is no other me in this world. Maybe it was my appearance that made me disappear in this parallel world. Maybe there is no trace of another me in this parallel world from the beginning to the end. I'm not sure what kind of things my appearance will bring to this parallel world. I'm not sure if my existence will put the world in a more dangerous situation. So I can only hide myself and dare not interfere with the development direction of this world. I'm like that butterfly. The difference is that I dare not flap my wings. Chapter 20. Nick Fury will never tell anyone his whole cards. What do you think of this diary? I watched it in the car? Natasha Romanoff. Okay, no kidding. Honestly, I don't really care that much. Watching the video, his face turned dark. Nick Fury, now darker because of his own joke. Widow's sister smiled very naturally. Everyone will die one day. This is a fate that human beings cannot escape. So since everyone is going to die, I don't mind being the first one to leave in the Avengers alliance. As long as I can find something that I think is more precious than life, something that I need to cherish, and something that I need to protect with all my might. At least that's how it is for me. By the way, Nick, actually from the moment I saw the diary, I wanted to ask, what is Mind Gem? Watch Nick Fury in the video. Natasha Romanoff asked. Sue wrote in the diary that the Wanda siblings originally possessed supernatural abilities, but inspired through Mind Gem. So, what exactly is the Mind Gem? If we get the Mind Gem in advance, can we turn the Wanda siblings into our own? Speaking of this, Natasha Romanoff stared at Nick Fury in the video. Definitely, I don't mean to pinch the Wanda siblings to blackmail Suche, the superhero of the parallel world. Listening to Natasha Romanoff, Nick Fury was silent for a few seconds. Okay, I admit that I sent someone to Sokovia to find the Wanda siblings. Know exactly what Natasha Romanoff was trying to say. So Nick Fury admitted it quite simply. In fact, as long as there are superheroes that have appeared in the diary, I have already sent people to find or monitor them. The proposal of Avengers is my idea all along, so I won't be so idiotic as to use the Wanda siblings to coerce Suche. Doing this will only make Suche, the superhero in the parallel world, feel bad and stay away from our side. For this world, one more superhero is equivalent to an extra layer of protection. What I can do is to form them and give them sufficient protection, and the rest depends on them. Definitely, the premise of all this is that Suche is really one of the Avengers members of the parallel world. Speaking of which, Nick Fury has no hesitation. In fact, after the appearance of the Black Gold Diary, Nick Fury knows that many things cannot be hidden. Fortunately, Natasha Romanoff can be trusted for now. Mind Gem is the same existence as Tesseract. Tesseract? Hearing what Nick Fury said, Natasha Romanoff sat up straight. Is that what Captain America Steve Rogers and Red Skull John Schmidt robbed when they fought? Right. He nodded slightly, agreeing with Natasha Romanoff's words. Nick Fury continued. The last battle between Steve Rogers and Red Skull ended with Red Skull disappearing and Steve Rogers driving a fighter plane into a glacier. Later, Mr. Howard Stark and Ms. Page have never given up on the salvage work to find the legendary hero. It's a pity that SHIELD ended up only salvaging the Tesseract, where the Captain America fighter plane crashed and was last seen. But the body of the legendary hero was not found, not even the fighter jet he was flying. The Tesseract doesn't look big, but the energy contained in it can be described as terrifying. A tiny Tesseract, if used properly, can easily destroy a planet. Hear Nick Fury tell the secrets he didn't know. Natasha Romanoff was obviously interested. Is the Tesseract now stored in SHIELD? What does it have to do with Mind Gem? Tesseract exists in SHIELD's secret dark matter research base. Many researchers are currently conducting secret research on it. I want to study the power of Tesseract to develop new weapons to protect the Earth. In fact, another name for Tesseract is Space Gem. It is one of the 6 infinite gems that exist in the universe. The other 5 gems are Mind Gem, Power Gem, Reality Gem, Soul Gem, and Time Gem. Then how do you know? I chuckled. Nick Fury looked at Natasha Romanoff with some emotion and said, "Do you think that I became the director of SHIELD just on the recommendation of Alexander Pierce?" Natasha Romanoff, the reason why I've always conceived of the Avengers proposition is because I've been through a lot of things firsthand, including going to outer space and having fierce battles with aliens on their battleships. In fact, I am the first person in SHIELD to fight aliens. Having said that, Nick Fury pointed to his eyes. My eye was blind during that battle. That's why I have the idea of forming a team like Avengers with super ability players as the team, because I know that the small planet Earth is not alone in this vast universe. Well, half of this was told to him by Captain Marvel Carol, and the other half was told by the Skrulls hiding in S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha Romanoff as one of the future Avengers members. Then there are some things I can tell her in advance. Anyway, it is estimated that it will gradually appear in the diary. Definitely. What I can tell her is only part of it. This does not include Captain Marvel Carol, his last and most reliable hole card. It does not include, among SHIELD, there is the existence of aliens who can transform into any shape and anyone. Yes, Natasha Romanoff is currently to be trusted. But, even so, Nick Fury will not tell anyone all the secrets and cards without reservation. Chapter 21 People have to experience 3 deaths. It is said that everyone will experience 3 deaths. The first death is when the heart of the body stops beating. The second death is when relatives and friends say goodbye to you at the funeral. And the third death is everyone slowly forgetting you. After seeing Natasha Romanoff, I was really grateful from the bottom of my heart. It's not that I'm glad that I'm still alive, but that at least I haven't forgotten them, whether it is to not forget them or to avoid the same fate in this parallel world. I must find a way to solve that damn doomsday catastrophe. This may be the only reason why I survived, or perhaps this is the best tribute to them. I believe that neither I nor any of the surviving Avengers will want to see the same bad luck happen to this world after experiencing the catastrophe of the doomsday. There must be a way. There must be. It's just how many times I dreamed of going back to midnight. I really hope that the ones who survived are other people. I really, really miss them. The diary writing stops here. After closing the diary, Natasha Romanoff had a serious expression on her face. Director, although I haven't been in contact with him for a long time, I have analyzed him through brief contact. Whether Sue's temperament, subconscious behavior choices, mind, or other aspects, in the short contact process, he fits the description of the superhero status in the diary for more than 10 years. Just after reading this diary, I think I should get in touch with him too much. I believe that his mind is very firm. Otherwise, he would not be able to become an Avenger to protect the world for more than 10 years. But the more a person is like this, the more he needs help. Once Sue Che's stress, anxiety, and other psychological problems reach the critical point of endurance, the consequences after the rebound will be even more terrifying. Listening to Natasha Romanoff's very serious analysis, Nick Fury shook his head. Natasha Romanoff, I agree with your idea of how close you want to be, but I don't agree with your point of view. If Sue is really the superhero who has guarded the Earth for more than 10 years, then even if the pressure reaches a critical point, I don't believe he will cause any irreversible rebound consequences. A superhero who has guarded the Earth for more than 10 years will become ABD, who wants to destroy the world because of strong pressure. If he's going to be such in a hole, then he doesn't qualify as a superhero in his world. Natasha Romanoff, I believe in him as much as I believe you would make a great Avenger. However, I agree with you to get in touch with him more, relieve stress, and psychological treatment. I allow you to use any method you think is suitable to help him sort out properly. Just right, I can also take this opportunity to observe him comprehensively. And as the guide for him to join the Avengers Alliance in the parallel world, you have a different position in his heart. I believe that through him, we will definitely bring us a huge surprise. Listening to Nick Fury's serious words, Natasha Romanoff nodded very seriously. Understood, Mr. Director. After the formal order conversation is over, Natasha Romanoff sat upright and slowly leaned back on the seat again. But Nick, what you said just now doesn't seem like you can say it. After all, you never trust anyone or anything 100%. Hearing Natasha Romanoff say that, Nick Fury didn't answer either. Just a word to Natasha Romanoff to be careful. Then the video was hung up. After the video hung up, Nick Fury frowned slightly. Looking at the sentence in the diary, it's just how many times I dreamed of going back to midnight. I really hope that other people survived. I really, really miss them. This sentence. Nick Fury was silent for a long time, then slowly closed the black gold diary. Gently pressed the button on the table. Soon, the closed office door opened. The very sassy Maria Hill walked in. Hill, the previous stop has been laid. This time you personally lead the team to Sokovia. No matter what the price is, you must bring the Wanda siblings back intact. Yes. Listening to Nick Fury's words, Maria Hill nodded with a very serious expression. This is the first time she has received orders from Nick Fury to do whatever it takes. Although she didn't know the reason, Maria Hill knew that this order must be completed. Watching Hill cleanly leave to get ready, Nick Fury leaned back in the chair. He has to be prepared for anything. Trust Natasha Romanoff yourself. But you can't put all your hopes on Natasha Romanoff alone. After all, it doesn't matter whether this Suche is really a superhero who has been guarding the Earth for more than 10 years, or another identity. He means so much to SHIELD, and even to the world he lives in. You have to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Absolutely must not let him have any psychological problems. Perhaps with the contact of Natasha Romanoff, coupled with the company of the Wanda siblings, this Suche should relieve some psychological pressure. Thinking of this, Nick Fury sighed unconsciously. In other words, I don't know when was the last time I felt like a nanny, even taking care of people from a psychological perspective. Chapter 22, he said he wanted to bring Wanda back. At all costs. Damn, Wanda's trust value is already 90%, and the damsel Phokexia is only 59%. It's only an increase of 2% from the first diary. Looking at the display on the system, the trust value of the three people in the diary. Suche felt a toothache for no reason. Did you say that Nick Fury had the highest level of trust in the beginning? That's it. The widow's trust value has now increased from 35% to 60%. In the end, you a black stewed egg only rose by 2%. TSK, it really deserves to be called the most suspicious. A 70% chance of something is called 100% existence. But that's right, if Nick Fury's trust value is skyrocketing, then he is not Nick Fury. System, receive rewards from 3 diary holders whose trust value exceeds 50%. Hearing Suche's order, the next second the system began to issue rewards to the 3 diary holders whose trust value exceeded 50%. A warm feeling lingered in my body, and the next second, well, nothing happened. It's the same as sitting in the Teowalan Cafe and basking in the sun. In addition to feeling that my strength and physical strength have increased a little. Others don't feel much. Taking a look at his data, his physical fitness has reached the peak state of ordinary people. TSK. I have to find a way to increase the widow sister's trust value to more than 90%. Well, Wanda's trust value is more than 90%, And what I got is the perfect advanced version of water controllability. Not only can control water, even the moisture in the air can be used by itself. And if the widow's trust value exceeds 90%, she can get 10 times the reward of the peak physical fitness of ordinary people. I just don't know when Nick Fury's trust value also exceeds 90%. What kind of reward will you get? He returned to the sofa and changed to a more comfortable position. Suche closed his eyes and said to the system, "System, start simulating the daily life with Natasha Romanoff written in my diary. This is the last system reward. I can simulate and write superhero scenes in my mind. In this way, I don't have to worry about being exposed because of unfamiliarity with tiny details when getting along with them. This is still very beneficial, and even if there is a slight discrepancy in details, it can be attributed to the different habits of the two people in the parallel world. It's just that sometimes Suche wonders whether after countless simulations, he will remember fragments of these simulations and become a true Avenger. No way. This is equivalent to stuffing a memory in your mind. Although Suche can choose to delete or block this memory and open it when necessary. However, thinking that the system requires him to use his identity as a superhero to make up stories to convince the diary holder. Maybe one day, I will really become a superhero. With the start of the scene simulation, Suche seemed to be in another world in the next second. There's a first meeting with Natasha Romanoff, and there's a scene where she's working as a bartender and getting along with her in normal times, and even a clip of her inviting herself to join Avengers. Although these fragments are all virtual, they are all fabricated by themselves. But it's quite true. During the whole process, Suche was very careful to record the widow's little movements and little likes and dislikes. This is very important. It is related to when I get along with my widow's sister next time. Starting from the details is whether the widow can make the widow believe in herself more, which is the key to the identity of the superhero from the parallel world. For these detailed questions, Suche never dared to be sloppy or careless. At the same time, inside the Hydra base castle in Sokovia, Maria Hill, that Nick Fury staunch supporter coming, looking at the agent rushing over from SHILD in front of him, he deliberately reported the news to himself. Baron Strucker, head of the Hydra base in Sokovia, frowned and asked, "In the beginning, Nick Fury asked you to find the siblings Wanda and Pietro. Then you just received an order that Maria Hill will come over in person and take away Wanda and Pietro?" "Yes, Mr. Strack." Facing Baron Strucker, the ostensible SHILD agent. The real identity is Sitwell, one of the Hydra members hiding in S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, the one in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, after being kicked down the stairs by the Widow and then dragged up by Falcon. The guy who defected without hesitation and told Steve they had insight into the plan. After facing Baron Strucker's questioning, Sitwell said without hesitation, "In fact, Mr. Strack, we are not sure why Nick Fury would know about the Wanda siblings. But it's clear that he attaches great importance to the twins and has confirmed that the Wanda siblings are still alive and in Sokovia. Otherwise, Maria Hill would not have come in person. Definitely, Mr. Baron Strucker, it seems trivial as to why this happened, but something that someone like Maria Hill could do in person. I thought Mr. Peters might look into it." Well, Sitwell's words are clearly telling the Baron Strucker in front of him through the subtext. Don't try to hide their siblings. Or just get rid of Wanda Pietro directly. Otherwise, the Hydra base here will definitely be exposed. Maybe at that time, Nick Fury will investigate in advance. SHILD hides the fact that a large amount of Hydra exists. After all, the mind and strength of that guy Nick Fury, Sitwell is a member of Hydra hiding inside S.H.I.E.L.D. I still understand it very well. And more importantly, everything should serve the Insight Plan. Before the Insight Plan is fully completed, then they have to continue to hide their identities. Even if the price is to pay the Sokovia HYDRA base, it is not hesitating. Chapter 23, The Widow. Sue, do you want to go play something really exciting? The next morning, inside the cafe, your eyes are bloodshot now. It can be seen that you didn't have a good rest last night. Looking at Pepper Potts, who was sitting in front of him with a cup of coffee, Suche comforted softly. "Don't worry, Mr. Tony Stark should be fine." Yes, word is spread that Tony Stark has been kidnapped. In just one night, the news about Tony Stark being kidnapped while displaying weapons in the Middle East desert can be said to be overwhelming. The major media, websites, video portals, news, etc. almost only need to turn on the TV and computer. You can easily see the news about Tony Stark's kidnapping. It can be said that the news about Tony Stark's kidnapping has become the hottest news this year. Not only that, there are endless speculations about Tony Stark's kidnapping. There are even many people who think that Tony Stark has been killed. It's just that it hasn't been reported. Some conspiracy theory experts believe that there must be a terrifying conspiracy behind the kidnapping of Tony Stark. Anyway, there are endless speculations about this news on the internet. But no matter what kind of speculation it is very uncomfortable to watch. Especially Pepper Potts, as Tony Stark's personal secretary and life assistant. She was even more worried. After learning about this incident, Payboy panicked and constantly called last night to inquire about the news. But the negative answer always made her extremely disappointed. Thanks. Without the usual joking intentions, Payboy held the coffee and said anxiously, "Sorry, I can only sit here for a while to maintain my mood. As long as I sit in the office, I can't stop thinking about it." "It doesn't matter." Listening to Payboy's words, Su Che comforted softly. "You can stay here as long as you want. If necessary, I can even order a bed for you in the coffee shop." "Forget it, I don't like sleeping in front of so many people." It seemed to relax some tense nerves, and Peepo forced a smile. "I called, and Tony's friend, Colonel Rhodes, has taken people to search for news about Tony himself. It's just that the vast desert is so big, it is very difficult to find Tony's traces. Not to mention that all the traces in the desert will be covered up as long as the wind blows. Since last night, as long as I close my eyes a little bit, the scene of Tony being attacked is all in my mind. I can't imagine what kind of bad luck Tony is suffering at this moment." Speaking of this, Peepo's eyes began to turn red, and the longer it takes, the more dangerous Tony will be. Speaking of this, Peepo seemed to think of something. Without any hesitation, he stood up and said to Su Che, "No, I have to contact a private detective now. As long as Tony can be found back, then Stark Industries is willing to offer a high bounty." "Sue, thank you for the coffee. I hope that after Tony is found, you can buy me a cup like today." "You're welcome." Smiling at Peepo, watching Peepo leave in a hurry, Su Che didn't care. "It's just a cup of coffee, but as the owner of the coffee shop, I can still afford it." Natasha Romanoff, who was not far away, watched Peepo leave and walked over with a cup of black coffee. "Sue, you want black coffee without sugar?" "Thanks." Taking the coffee handed over by the widow, Su Che smiled and thanked her. Which one should be the life assistant of the kidnapped Tony Stark that was being broadcast on TV just now? It seems that her feelings for Tony Stark are not just as simple as a personal assistant. Facing Peepo's anxious pace of leaving, Natasha Romanoff asked curiously, as if very gossip, "Who knows?" Facing Natasha Romanoff's gossip, Su Che shrugged his shoulders. "I wrote in my diary that Tony Stark and Pepper would have a child named Morgan Stark." Natasha Romanoff knew it. The reason why I am asking this now is just a way to open up the topic. Definitely. As Su Che, who didn't know that the diary had been sneaked by them. Naturally, these things will not be said. It is still very important to maintain the personality in front of the widow. A woman's intuition tells me that Ms. Pepper has an unusual feeling for Tony Stark. But having said that, who would have thought that Tony Stark, a billionaire and known as the greatest genius of this century, would be attacked and kidnapped? My God, after seeing the news last night, I was almost shocked. Sitting across from Su Che's coffee table without leaving a trace, Natasha Romanoff said in a shocked tone, "Now, all major media are reporting this matter. I don't know if the group of kidnappers who attacked Tony Stark wanted a ransom, revenge, or some other purpose." Not far from the counter, watching Natasha Romanoff sitting across from her boss, very silky. He even chatted with his boss. Selena wiped the coffee cup and nodded thoughtfully. It turns out that it can still be like this. Learned. Sure enough, the high school teacher was right. You can learn from anyone what you don't know. However, watching Natasha Romanoff chatting with her boss seems to be very happy. Selena thought about it and felt that she should continue to work hard. After all, the manager of this Tehualan cafe has not yet been determined. Well, instead of talking to your boss, working hard is the real deal. Secretly cheering herself up, Selena worked even harder. People always have dreams. And Selena's dream is to become the store manager of this Teowalan cafe. In front of the coffee table. Seriously, isn't it boring to sit here every day? Looking at Suche, Natasha Romanoff suddenly smiled and said, "By the way, I know there's a very interesting sport, so do you want to play something exciting later? Trust me, this is absolutely de-stressing, very anxiety-relieving, and I guarantee you will love it." Looking at Suche, after chatting for a while, Natasha Romanoff sent out the invitation, very silky. "Kong busy, Sue. Don't refuse the invitation of a beautiful lady, please. Put your hands together, pretending to be pitiful." TSK. In order to invite Suche, the widow's sister actually started acting cute. Chapter 24, The Undead Widow and Nick Fury inside the car. "Sue, what do you think is the purpose of the group that attacked Tony Stark?" Looking at Suche, who pressed down the car window and put his hand outside the car window, it seemed as if he was feeling the flow of the wind. Natasha Romanoff asked while driving the car. "Purpose? Who knows? I'm not a kidnapper, so naturally I can't guess the purpose of this group of people. However, generally speaking, the cause of the case is either because of hatred or because of money and affection. Many times, long-term dissatisfaction will be accumulated and accumulated to a certain extent, and it will reach the critical point of explosion. The kind of dissatisfaction that accumulates over time and the hatred that evolves from it is the most terrifying." Listening to Suche's answer, Natasha Romanoff laughed. That's not something a 19-year-old can say. I always feel that you have experienced a lot of things. Hey, it's been a long journey anyway, why don't you tell me?" While talking, Natasha Romanoff took out 2 pieces of chewing gum. He threw one into his mouth and handed the other to Suche. "Thank you, but you may not be interested in my past." Taking the chewing gum handed over by Natasha Romanoff, Suche thanked and threw it into his mouth. "Who knows? Maybe I find it charming." Tilting her head and looking at Suche, Natasha Romanoff gave a charming smile. "Are you sure you don't want to share? Watch the road and drive hard." Seeing Natasha Romanoff tilting her head and looking at her, Suche motioned her not to be distracted while driving. "You should feel at ease about my driving skills, trust me. Even if I close my eyes, nothing will happen to me. Come on, I don't want to pay for your overconfidence." Driving along the street, the two chatted in the car. When passing by an alley, there was a sudden scream of panic in the alley. Then there were bursts of cries for help. Through the open car window, Suche and Natasha Romanoff spotted it immediately. At this moment in the alley, a black man is threatening a woman with a knife. It looked like a robbery was going on. He heard the voice of a woman calling for help from the alley. Suche's fingers resting on the outside of the car window flicked lightly inadvertently. In the next second, a drop of water appeared out of thin air and then very quickly flew towards the black man who was robbing with a knife. As the car drove past the alley, the drops of water hit the neck of the black man with his back, facing outside the alley very precisely. Before he could react, a burst of absolute dizziness came under the heavy blow, and the black man fell to the ground directly. Thump! Watching the black man who robbed himself with a knife fell to the ground. The woman who was robbed was not surprised at all, as if she was mentally prepared. At the same time, he did not choose to leave immediately. Instead, he immediately took out a small timer and started counting, and then ran out of the alley in a panic. "In the car! Are you calling the police?" Looking at Suche, who took out his mobile phone and dialed the number, Natasha Romanoff asked while driving the car. "Definitely, if this kind of thing happens, it's best to let the police come out. If you act like a hero, I'm afraid the consequences will be very serious. After all, no one knows if the black man has a gun or something." After calling the police, Suche explained what happened in a simple and neat language. From the corner of the eye, I saw the rear of the formal car, and the woman who was robbed ran out in a hurry. Only then did Suche continue talking about the incident on the other end of the phone. Looking at Suche, who was concentrating on talking about the case, Natasha Romanoff continued to drive the car as if nothing had happened. It's just that on the side of the rearview mirror, where Suche is located, the small bright spot invisible to the naked eye gradually goes out, with the car disappearing on the street. The woman who ran out of the alley with a panicked expression regained her composure at this moment. There is no abnormality at all. After turning around and re-entering the alley, He did not help or wake up the fainted black man. After confirming that his life was not in danger, he quietly watched the time, jumping rapidly on the timer. More than 3 minutes later, I heard the sound of sirens from the entrance of the alley, and 2 patrolmen with weapons ran over. The woman took out her ID and told them that they don't need to intervene here. After the police left, the woman continued to stare at the timer in her hand. The moment he heard the black man, who fell on the ground, regain consciousness and subconsciously make a sound, the woman stopped the timer very quickly. 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Looking at the stop time on the timer, the woman said to the black man, "The time from the police car to here is about 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and the time you were unconscious was 6 minutes and 43 seconds. The time interval in between is doubled. It should be for the victim to escape and for the police to be unable to arrive in time for some reason." Hearing what the woman said, the black man got up from the ground and sat up against the wall. How did I faint? Although I felt something hit the back of my neck before I fainted. But I didn't hear the sound of the wind breaking from the attack behind me. I don't know about this either. Listening to the black man's words, the woman shook her head. But Chief Natasha Romanoff should have filmed it. We'll know when the time comes. TSK. Touching the very uncomfortable cervical spine, the black man clicked his tongue. If I knew it earlier, I might as well go to carry out the mission with Boss Phil Coulson. Come on, passerby SHILD members like us are not qualified to choose missions. Remember, today's events are not allowed to be disclosed. The assessment after Christmas is the key to whether we can be promoted to level 5 agent. Leaning against the wall for a while, the black man stood up and said, "Hurry up to level 5. I don't want to continue to be a passerby agent. It's also because of our bad luck. The agent who came out of the Eagle's Nest 10 years ago can directly become a level 5 agent. It's not like now, after training from the Eagle's Nest, the result is still to start from the passerby level. But speaking of it, this at least gives us a time to adapt. Otherwise, stop your damn black language ability. If you want to take advantage of your ability, then go out and make a record. There are so many words." While speaking, the woman walked out of the alley. Seeing the back of the woman leaving, the black man chased after her and said, "Hey buddy, you are discriminating against me. Do you know? Hey, wait for me." Chapter 25, Why Doesn't SHILD Allow Cats? On the Quinjet. "Where are you guys taking our siblings?" Inside the cabin. Looking at the elder sister who was sitting across from him, who seemed to have a cold personality, Wanda asked warily, recalling that before being picked up, Baron Strucker warned himself and Pietro to forget that he joined Hydra in Sokovia. It is absolutely not even allowed to disclose the identity of the two people. Inexplicably, Wanda felt uneasy for a while, although Wanda still doesn't understand what Hydra really means. But the thought of Baron Strucker's icy, serious expression. Wanda knew that the person who took herself and Pietro away this time was definitely not simple. After all, although Sokovia has been in turmoil all year round, it is very dangerous everywhere. But there has never been any force that dares to conflict with the organization they belong to. And although the time to join the Sokovia HYDRA base is not long, but Wanda is very clear that in the castle where he lives, there are various fighter jets and tanks. A power like this is already very impressive in Sokovia. But in the face of these people who took him away, Baron Strucker didn't dare to resist. She didn't even dare to show up, but sent herself and Pietro to a residential building and asked her to take herself and Pietro away. Thinking of this, Wanda subconsciously hugged the black gold diary that no one else could see. It seemed that this black gold diary could bring her some comfort. What if the owner of the diary is Su Che? Her future husband in that parallel world knew these things. He will definitely come to save himself. Now, he didn't even know that he and Pietro were taken away by this group of people. What should I do now? In case this group of people treats themselves and Pietro, feeling extremely anxious and flustered. Wanda didn't even realize that there was a slight tinge of red in her palm. Just when Wanda was feeling anxious, the big sister with a cold expression suddenly spoke. "Don't worry, Wanda Pietro. We're Homeland Strategies, SHILD agents, and we don't mean any harm." As a professional agent, Maria Hill can definitely see that Wanda and Pietro are nervous and anxious at the moment. Facing this moment, he looked at him vigilantly, like a wounded little beast. Maria Hill has such a soft heart. After all, there were still two 14-year-old children who had lost their parents and lived in war-torn areas all year round. Facing Wanda, his eyes are wary and alert. And Pietro on the side is ready to desperately look at any time. Although I don't care about these two teenagers who are only 14 years old. But Maria Hill comforted. Please rest assured, we SHILD will not harm you at all. The reason why you two twin siblings were taken away from Sokovia is because the environment there is too dangerous and not suitable for you to continue living. After arriving at SHILD for a while, we will arrange a safe and comfortable accommodation for you. You are at the right age to study carefree on campus. I will arrange all these for you. Listening to the soft and gentle words of the big sister with a cold expression in front of her, Wanda and Pietro did not dare to relax in the slightest. Although the slightly red energy in Wanda's palm gradually disappeared. But Pietro didn't believe what the big sister in front of him said. Over the years, Pietro has seen too many children of his and Wanda's age in Sokovia. Either they're the same as their siblings, their parents died in the war, or begging for food, doing various jobs on the street. I even saw it when I died on the street. Why didn't they see the more pitiful ones being taken away by this person, who claimed to be the so-called SHILD? Compared with them, my twins seem to need to be saved even less. Arrange a comfortable living environment for yourself and Wanda, and let yourself and Wanda go to school. From the moment my parents died, from the moment I prayed to the gods countless times, but it was useless. Pietro doesn't believe in the so-called good luck. The so-called goodwill will come to himself and Wanda. So face the kindness that Hill exudes. Pietro still guards Wanda vigilantly. No matter what happens in a moment, if this group of people dares to shoot themselves and Wanda, then Pietro decided to fight them himself. Even if it only makes Wanda suffer a little bit of bad luck later, then it is worth paying the price of your own life. Because I'm the big brother. Looking at the twins who were still vigilant and disbelieving, Maria Hill did not continue to say anything. Although I don't know why Nick Fury gave the order suddenly. Let yourself lead the team and bring the twins back at any cost. But Maria Hill knew that Nick Fury should have his own plan. I just need to bring them to Nick Fury as ordered. Speaking of which, when Nick Fury gave himself an order, he seemed to touch his broken eye unconsciously. It shouldn't have anything to do with the eyeball. Otherwise, Nick Fury would have done it long ago if he wanted to replace that eye. Still using thousands of miles to find the twins? But think of Nick Fury's eyes. Maria Hill was skeptical. She really didn't know how Nick Fury's eye broke. I heard him say that it was a mission and he was injured by the person he trusted the most. Could this be why he became paranoid later on, never trusting anyone? Then why is one of the unwritten rules of SHILD prohibiting cats? Forget it. Hill didn't think about things he couldn't understand. If you don't like cats, don't raise them. Anyway, it's not a big deal. Chapter 26. Well, Suche's choice fits superhero way. Boom, bang, bang. Suburban Arms training ground. Suche was holding a pistol and was constantly pulling the trigger on the target 30 meters ahead. 3 points and 1 line. Keep your eyes on the center of the gun target. Very good. Steady hand when shooting. 13 bullets, except for the first 3 that missed the target. All the other bullets hit the target. He looked at Suche, who was not so proficient in ejecting bullets according to the movements he taught him. Natasha Romanoff folded her arms and said with a smile, I can see that this is your first time playing with a gun. How about it? This project is enough to relieve pressure. It's okay. I really haven't touched it before. After unloading the bullet, Suche looked at Natasha Romanoff and smiled. Why did you suddenly think of bringing me to this place? Because I am a member here. Shaking the membership card in his hand at Suche, Natasha Romanoff raised his eyebrows and said, when I was under a lot of pressure, I like to come here to shoot targets. Putting away the membership card, Natasha Romanoff took Suche's pistol and loaded it while talking. You know, even though I'm a woman, I like to play this too. After the words fell, Natasha Romanoff raised her gun in a very sassy manner and fired at a target 30 meters away, accompanied by the sound of bullet casings falling to the ground. Suche could even see that all 13 bullets passed through the same single hole in the target 30 meters away. After firing the bullet, Natasha Romanoff dropped the magazine and smiled at Suche. "How about it? Do you want to become a member? The membership fee is not expensive, and with the membership card, you can come in and play at any time, and the bullets are still half price. Definitely, the most important thing is that I brought you in. If you can apply for a card today, then I might get a little commission." Seeing Natasha Romanoff's very warm invitation, Suche thought for a while, then handed her the credit card. "All right." Seeing that the credit card was handed to him, Natasha Romanoff smiled at Suche, then took the credit card and walked towards the place where the card is processed in the distance. Watching Natasha Romanoff leave, Suche picked up the pistol again and loaded it with bullets. That boy doesn't like to play with guns. And what boy can resist the temptation to pull the trigger? There is no chance to contact before crossing. Now that I finally have a chance, I definitely want to play enough. Bang, bang, bang. After a magazine was emptied by Suche. Seeing the weapons in front of him, Suche put down his pistol. Sniper rifle? Don't play for now. Rifle? Well, play for a while. Submachine gun. Equal treatment to a rifle. When you see the light machine gun at the end of the gun and the large magazine, Suche's eyes lit up slightly, and without any hesitation, he stepped forward and raised one hand. With the spare time of turning around, out of the corner of his eye, he saw Natasha Romanoff looking at him. Suche pretended to be more interested and then started shooting at the air target with a light machine gun. Not far away, seeing Suche holding a light machine gun and starting to shoot air targets, Natasha Romanoff smiled and then spoke to the administrator. He went straight to the parking lot. It is said to be parked, but in fact, it is just parked casually in the wilderness. After coming to his car and making sure that there was no one around, he made a call and lightly pressed the small video recorder installed in the car. Hit the play button with Natasha Romanoff. Soon, the video began to play after Suche got into the co-pilot. Fast forward. Natasha Romanoff fast forwards the video directly to the alley. "Sir, Andrew didn't notice the danger before he was stunned. And after your car left, Andrew fainted for 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Exactly twice the time it took those police officers to come here. According to the normal process time calculation, Andrew will be handcuffed by the police and escorted to the police car before waking up." As soon as the phone was connected, the other end quickly began to report. While listening to the report from the female detective on the other end of the phone, Natasha Romanoff watched as the car drove past the alley. The picture taken by the miniature high-speed camera hidden in the rearview mirror of the co-pilot. In the picture, Suche flicked his fingertips lightly. Although the movement range was not large, Natasha Romanoff could still easily capture it. "I see. This task is regarded as a test of action, and the result is not recorded as a case." "Yes, sir." After hanging up the phone, Natasha Romanoff rewinded to the scene where Suche's fingertips flicked just now, and then began to play frame by frame. Under the high-speed camera, Suche can be clearly seen after hearing the cry for help. At the tip of the middle finger, a transparent water ball the size of the thumb file condenses extremely quickly in the form of water droplets. Then in the movement of Suche flicking his fingertips slightly. This transparent water polo takes advantage of the time difference between the speed of the car and the passing of the alley. He flew towards the alley at a very high speed. This should be Sue's ability, or one of his abilities. Looking at the picture successfully captured by the high-speed camera on the rearview mirror of the co-pilot, Natasha Romanoff thought about it seriously. Obviously, if it was an ordinary camera, Night Attack would not be able to capture the subtle movements and the process of water droplets condensing. But fortunately, the high-speed capture camera in the rearview mirror of the co-pilot was improved by the SHILD research department. Therefore, after partial zoom-in processing, the process of water polo growing from scratch and water droplets agglomerating can be clearly seen. This is in line with Suche's setting as a super ability user. However, it is still uncertain whether Suche's ability is to create things out of thin air, or use the moisture in the air to create the water sphere. If it is the former, you can create things according to your mind. Then this ability is too terrifying. In addition, it took Andrew a total of 6 minutes and 42 seconds from being stunned to waking up. This also means that after Suche heard the call for help, he analyzed that the other party was only using a dagger instead of a gun. After the level of threat is not great. Che made a judgment immediately and chose to rescue instead of killing the perpetrator. In addition, after he was stunned enough to call the police came to arrest him. Well, this meticulous mind is in line with a superhero, in line with an Asgardian approach. After all, they're facing non-superpowers and criminals who are not a strong threat. Stunning it rather than killing it is the best option. A person with a strong killing intent cannot become a superhero. Just like the blind man on record in SHIEL. D, who is a lawyer by day and fights criminals by night. Chapter 27. Tony Stark. My first love is the honey badger. Desert inside a cave. Hey, this thing is really bad. I swear it's the worst thing I've ever eaten in my life. With a small iron fist in hand, look at the slimy morsels of potatoes inside. Tony Stark complained as he ate. Although he was complaining, he didn't put down the bowl in his hand. He is very clear that he has fallen to this point, and only if he persists will he have a chance of being rescued. The materials here are poor and scarce, and it is very rare to have a bite of food. Listening to Tony's words, watching the onboard generator next to him to keep Tony Stark alive was still working. Only then did I feel a little relieved. After all, the guys who attacked and kidnapped him said that Tony Stark was dead. Then he might not be able to continue to live. Facing Ethan's words, Tony Stark was silent for a moment, and then laughed at himself. Actually, I'm not picky about food. Perhaps you can't imagine that what I want to eat most now is actually a cheeseburger. Okay, Ethan, why are you here? You know, my instincts have always been right. I think you should not be with the group of guys who attacked and kidnapped me. Staring at Ethan, Tony Stark looked at Hope in front of him pretending to be relaxed. It doesn't matter whether you can escape or not, and it doesn't matter when the rescuer will come. In this damn place, at least Tony Stark thought. At least the people who can communicate with him should not be with those damn guys. This is also a little bit of comfort to myself in the desperate situation. Facing Tony Stark looked at himself. Ethan pushed his glasses and continued to eat the sticky mashed potatoes without any seasoning. After a little silence, Ethan suddenly asked, "Is there a difference?" Definitely, the difference is huge. Looking at Ethan, Tony Stark laughed at himself and said, "It's like my first love, the girl Cassie Della Gillespie from the Arms family. When my daddy was still alive, he told me she wasn't a good girl for me. But I didn't believe it. The less my father likes something, the more I want to do it. Facts have proved that my father's vision is not bad, and that girl really approached me with a purpose. It was only later that I found out that she was an agent codenamed Honey Badger." Having said that, Tony Stark looked at Ethan. The situation now is similar to what I was then. Although I was mentally trapped at the time, it is physically trapped now. But then at least I had family and friends I could trust. Hearing what Tony Stark said, Ethan in the cave continued to remain silent. After a long time, in Tony Stark's expectant eyes, Ethan suddenly said, "Go to sleep. You are not in good health yet." After finishing speaking, he didn't care about Tony Stark, but went directly back to his bed to get ready to rest. Yes, if I didn't answer Tony Stark's question directly, I might disappoint him. But I can't really trust him now. After all, everyone knows that this is just an arrogant playboy. In this place where life is always at the cost of life, Ethan will not and is not willing to trust anyone easily. What's more, he is still a guy known as an arrogant BD. Seeing that Ethan didn't answer himself, Tony Stark was indeed a little disappointed. Moving his body and lying on the bed again, his eyes fixed on the top of the cave, his thoughts began to gradually spread. It has been more than a week since I was kidnapped. What I thought and dreamed these days was not Rhodes' group of people who should be frantically looking for him at this moment. It was his life assistant, Paybois. With her around, at least I don't need to worry about anything. She can help herself take care of all the chores of life. Perhaps she should be very worried about her boss now. Still no news. More than a week has passed. Although Peepo was still very worried, his mood was much more stable. At least in the coffee shop, I can still joke with Che. The reward of 10 million is enough to make those famous private investigators go crazy. Not to mention the person who needs to be rescued is Tony Stark, the man who has received countless spotlights. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any news about Tony's usefulness until now. Then you can take a good vacation. Seeing that Peepo's mood has stabilized, Che laughed and said, "Before the worst news comes back, It proves that there is still hope for everything. I hope so, but the guy I feel most relaxed about is happy. After all, during the time Tony was missing, he only needed to clock in at work. He doesn't even need to check in. After all, as Tony's bodyguard and driver, Tony is not here. He is the most relaxed. Glancing at his watch, Peepo stood up with his bag in hand. Thank you for the coffee. I still have some things to deal with here. If Tony is rescued one day, then I will pay double the amount of coffee you buy these days. Hearing what Pabe was said, Su-Che smiled. Then I should pray that Mr. Tony Stark will come back soon. I hope so too. Nodding to Su-Che, Pabe got up and walked towards the door of the coffee shop. Outside the cafe, Wanda, I don't understand why the two of us are here for coffee. What's so good about this stuff? Although the guy in a blindfold gave us living expenses. But I hate it here. Especially, this coffee shop is across from that goddamn Tony Stark's business. Shut up, Pietro. Listening to Pietro's nagging, Wanda told him to shut up immediately. Looking up, I looked at this coffee shop named Peach Blossom Forest. Wanda took a deep breath, then pushed the door open and walked in. I want to see what my future husband looks like in the diary. Thanks to the Baidu Setting Collection brother for the 588 VIP point reward. Thanks to the Confused Hale brother for the 100 rewards. Thanks to Wei Gongling Yu. The world is white. I am alone black. 2209. Drinking alone under the moon. Monthly ticket support from several brothers. Thank you very much for your support, everyone. Chapter 28. Wanda unilaterally announces that she is very satisfied with her future husband. Push open the door of the coffee shop and walk in. Wanda subconsciously looked at what was written in the diary, the one sitting in the second row with the best sun exposure. Looking over at a glance, he saw a tall, straight, and tough figure, whose back seemed to be unable to bend down even if the sky fell, especially in the warm and colorful sunshine. Although I haven't seen clearly what the owner of this figure looks like. However, maybe it was because of the influence of the diary, or maybe it was because of Su-Che's aura. Wanda always felt that this figure in the sun seemed to be shrouded in an extremely attractive sense of mystery. This is my future husband in the parallel world. Withdrawing his thoughts, his eyes rolled slightly. The corner of Wanda's mouth raised a point and immediately brought Pietro to the counter, raising her voice deliberately. Please give me and Pietro 2 glasses of latte. Not far away. Su-Che is drinking coffee and thinking about how to write the next diary. Suddenly, I heard the words, please give me and Pietro 2 lattes from behind. Involuntarily turned his head to look. As far as the eye can see, 2 figures are standing in front of the counter. Although Wanda and Pietro are only 14 years old at the moment, their looks are still relatively young. But Su-Che recognized them at a glance. Yes, this is Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in their youth. You can't go wrong. This day has indeed come. Inside the counter, listening to Wanda's crunchy voice, Natasha Romanoff laughed and said, okay, wait a minute. While talking, Natasha Romanoff began to prepare coffee for Wanda and Pietro. From the corner of his eye, he glanced at Su-Che's expression at the moment. Although a few days ago, I saw Su-Che's ability from the shooting range and his handling of emergencies. Natasha Romanoff has endorsed him. Even the trust value of the content written in the diary has increased a lot. However, I received a message from Nick Fury 2 days ago. Said he sent someone to bring Wanda and Pietro back from Sokovia. So Natasha Romanoff has been waiting for this moment to come. On the one hand, the reason why these 2 little guys were brought back was to allow Su-Che, the owner of the diary, to meet acquaintances. After meeting his future girlfriend, or even his wife, it is good to relieve some of the stress and anxiety in his heart. After all, the sense of despair and depression described in the diary came to my face. On the other hand, it is also the last test of Su-Che, the superhero of the parallel world. If there are no surprises, then Natasha Romanoff thinks there is no need to continue to test anything. It should be further, according to the description in the diary of Su-Che, the superhero of the parallel world. Get ready for the future. Looking at Su-Che from the corner of the eye, Natasha Romanoff constantly analyzed Su-Che's expression and body movements at the moment. Obviously, after Su-Che heard Wanda's voice just now, he turned his head subconsciously. After seeing Wanda and Pietro clearly, what flashed in his eyes was surprise. or even astonishment. It seems to be wondering why they are here. Although there are surprises and excitement, but only for a moment. After reacting, it was full of pain and nostalgia. This reaction is correct. After all, for Suche, the owner of the diary, this is a parallel world. Even the 14-year-old Wanda in front of me is a peer of a parallel world. But after all, it's not Suche's wife in the parallel world. I'm afraid that the Wanda in the parallel world he lived in has died with the destruction of that parallel world. So seeing 14-year-old Wanda miss his wife in that world, this kind of pain and longing is the most correct reaction. If after seeing Wanda, I will be very excited and amazed to the point where I can't hold back. That's just pretending. Looking at the analysis of Suche's expression, Natasha Romanoff nodded slightly. After the third trial, Natasha Romanoff felt that there was no need to continue the trial. The first time I came to the coffee shop to apply for a job. The second time was an emergency when I took him to the shooting range a few days ago and passed by an alley. The third time is today. These three temptations all happened suddenly, but Suche behaved as he expected. Natasha Romanoff felt that the trial mission could be over. Natasha Romanoff felt normal. Wanda is so dissatisfied. Well, although my future husband in this parallel world is handsome and aura, even the story-filled vicissitudes between eyebrows is very fascinating, and there is a desire to explore. And the faint melancholy temperament in the eyes is almost like a mysterious prince from the East, extremely charming. However, when he saw himself again, his eyes kept changing, but he didn't come over. Not to mention the first meeting he imagined. He couldn't help rushing up to hug him. Shouldn't lovers who have been reunited after a long time meet for the first time have an excited hug? In the TV I watched at the Hydra base in Sokovia, it seemed like this was all played out. Well, Wanda also knows that the TV series are all fake. And this reaction is normal. After all, this is me, my future husband in the parallel world. However, I have to say that it is still very satisfying. Anyway, Wanda thinks that the tall, handsome, and charming guy in front of her is far beyond her standards for her future husband. In addition, he is a superhero in a parallel world, and he is also very strong, able to protect himself and Pietro. Hey. Well, when I saw the hanging stone in my heart, I fell to the ground. At least, don't worry that your future husband will be a greasy uncle. Chapter 29, Sudden Attack. Who is it? In the evening, in an apartment. You are wrong. Very wrong. Looking at Wanda sitting on the sofa, the corners of her mouth are always raised, and she seems to be in a good mood. Pietro crossed his arms and said suspiciously, "When you came back from the coffee shop this afternoon, you kept giggling. You even hummed the nursery rhyme that your mother taught us when we were having dinner. Oh my God, I can't remember the last time you hummed this song. What the hell happened, and why do you have to go to that coffee shop?" Although he experienced the pain of losing his father and mother when he was a teenager, he also endured the hardships of being displaced. Pietro and Wanda are far more mature mentally than Common's peers. However, even so, there is a limit to mental maturity. At least, how could Pietro understand that he is now 14 years old? In the middle of puberty, the kind of girl who is full of spring and yearns for a beautiful love, Wanda, what is she thinking at this moment? I found that your feeling seems to be particularly sharp today. Listening to Pietro's inquiry, Wanda raised her hand and patted Pietro's head. Remember, I am the older sister. Oh, here we come again. Hearing what Wanda said, Pietro leaned on the sofa speechlessly. Every time you encounter something you don't want to say, or encounter something that you disagree with, you just act like I am the older sister, and you must listen to me. Look. But actually, Wanda, according to my birth time, I am. Before he finished speaking, he watched Wanda staring at him. Pietro paused for a moment, then raised his hand in surrender and said, Okay, you are my sister. That's about the same. He rubbed Pietro's head in satisfaction and looked at Pietro with the accustomed expression. Wanda smiled and said, I'm thinking about what we're going to school tomorrow. When it comes to going to school, Wanda's eyes flashed with excitement and anticipation, but also hesitation and confusion. Once upon a time, it was a matter of being able to study and go to school like a peer. Seems far away from himself and Pietro. But now, After the cold-faced sister who doesn't like to laugh brings herself and Pietro back from Sokovia. I thought they were going to harm my siblings. Unexpectedly, the guy with the bald head and the blindfold just asked himself and Pietro about some things in life. So he directly arranged a house here for his siblings. No one imagined will suffer. There is no such thing as extorting confessions by torture. He didn't regard himself and Pietro as experimental subjects. Instead, he arranged an apartment for his siblings in New York, not only for living expenses every month, even arranged for school. It's as if my siblings can really live the life of common peers. Not sure what the guy with the blindfold was trying to do, though. But anyway, since there is no ability to resist now, then follow the arrangement. If those conspiracies really appear in the future, big deal. I took Pietro to find Suche. Well, as a future husband, Suche will never ignore herself and Pietro. At the same time, in the parking lot, getting off the car, Suche was thinking about how to write the fourth diary tonight. Walk in the direction of the apartment. Before he walked out of the parking lot, a sense of horror suddenly rose in his heart in the next second. Raising his hand almost subconsciously, a layer of extremely dense water shield instantly condensed in the palm of his hand, covering himself. Don't wait to see the danger coming. A bullet rushed directly towards Suche with a sharp sound of piercing the air. Puff! As we all know, the trajectory of bullets in water will be deflected, and ricochets will also occur. So when the bullet penetrated the water shield and brushed past Suche's ear, the kinetic energy had already disappeared. Seeing the bullet falling in front of him, Suche said that it was a lie, that he was not shocked. After all, he was just a common man before crossing over. Even now, he possesses supernatural abilities. But after all, it's just common people. Fortunately, the mentality that was exercised during the system simulation let Suche initially have a strong psychological quality. Facing the sudden attack, Suche turned into a cheetah almost subconsciously and chased after the bullet that shot him. Following, Suche quickly chased towards the attacker. The surrounding air was faintly turbulent. Countless drops of water began to condense from all directions and then shot at the attacker like sharp arrows. At the same time, 100 meters away, the assailant in black was hiding behind the car. Then he saw that the target had actually created a floating water shield out of thin air to neutralize the power of his own bullets. Without hesitation, he closed his gun and prepared to escape. This time my target is not common people. If he hesitated for a second, he might die here before he could turn around and run away. He heard clusters of sharp sounds piercing the air behind him. This guy who has been fighting on the front line all year round can naturally feel the danger coming. Before his thoughts could react, his body reacted first and hid directly behind the car. Ding! Jingle! Bang, bang, bang! Accompanied by the water arrow attack. The originally intact car became riddled with holes in an instant. Some water arrows even directly penetrated the entire vehicle. Directly penetrate the attacker's shoulders. Depend on. He cursed secretly while clutching his shoulder that was in sharp pain for a moment. The assailant just stood up and continued to flee. Suddenly, a massive water polo with huge amounts of water appeared in front of it, knocking it into the air, and then smashed it heavily onto the car. Chapter 30. Damn, I've been blamed. The distance of 100 meters seems to be far away, but for Suche, who has the peak physical fitness, under the full pursuit, it took almost a few seconds to bully him. Although his skills are common, Suche caught the attacker in an instant and smashed it heavily to the ground. At the same time, exert force with both hands, only to hear two click and click, then directly abolish the guy's two arms. Then I remembered the thrilling moment when I was almost taken away by the bullet just now. When he came back to his senses, that trace of fear turned into anger. Under the adrenaline rush, Suche clenched his fists with red eyes. In an instant, like raindrops, it kept hitting the attacker heavily. No way, Suche was a common person before, although there are some systematic simulations. But this was the first brush with death. Skills are common people, not some fighting masters. At most, the physical fitness is the peak of ordinary people. In this case, if the guy in front of him is not completely abolished, who knows if this guy has other backhands? After a dozen heavy punches, if it wasn't for Suche, he still maintained his sanity. Then I'm afraid the assailant will be beaten to death by Che. Looking at the assailant lying limp on the ground with blood all over his cheeks. Che stretched out his hand, and the next second the moisture in the air instantly condensed into a huge amounts of water polo. Trapped the attacker firmly inside, leaving only one head outside for interrogation. In order to prevent this guy from being dishonest,
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.